Alrighty. How's everybody doing today? We've got quite a bit of news to cover, mainly in-game stuff. So, let me just go do something real fast. I think I actually need to go pop open my client, because we'll probably need it for a couple of things that I will be taking a look at. So, yeah, let me go get that, all set up in the background. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. If you knew her showcase was at night, why didn't you spawn camp the Withering Waves YouTube? So, if you'll notice, this showcase is about 1 minute and 34 seconds long. And actually, it ends at about 1:08. So I'm gonna be honest over here. Yeah, that's not really looking that good for its own independent video, my friend. That's kind of a short one. I'm gonna be real with you over there. Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you over there. That's a bit of a rough one. Not too easy. Not too easy with that. Not too easy at all. There have been shorter ones. Yeah, and even if there were shorter ones, we haven't necessarily got ahead and reacted to those. We usually combine them with other stuff. But you miss Kuro misspelling the name of their own game on all platforms. It was a good one. That was a good typo. I think it was Withering Waves. But it looks like in the 13 hours since the video's been uploaded, that shit has been fixed. Though honestly, it probably helped with the views. Hey, appreciate how we're at 6 out of 10 of the daily subs. I don't know who the previous 5 were, but Moolah, appreciate it, and whoever the previous 5 were, appreciate that as well, my friends. All right. So we're just gonna go ahead, get ourselves kind of like settled down. We're gonna go ahead, get ourselves settled down, and we'll start off with a couple of things in order. Probably just gonna go right into the combat showcase. Then you'll, naturally go take a look at her kit. So that's gonna be the schedule, and then of course we've also gonna have her weapon details as well. That's gonna be pretty neat. Alrighty. Let's start getting right on into it. Let's start getting right on into it. It definitely helped with the engagements in the comments. Absolutely, right? Absolutely, it helped with the engagement in the comments. People love the Kuro typo. In fact, I need them to go ahead, and when it comes to their Kuro typo, put it here. Like, put it on this, like, ending screen that you have at the end of, like, all of the showcases. Like, you guys remember Augusta showcase, right? Where it's, like, a bunch of, like, swords and shit, and they're all, like, flying in from, like, a corner of the screen to make the Wuthering Waves logo. Imagine if that shit was misspelled. with with all of that animation work being put in. That would be hilarious. Hey, freaking odds, appreciate it. Oh my gosh, you're on a spree today right now, sir. You are on a spree right now. Appreciate it, brother, man. Okay. Oh man, that was a... I feel like I just, like, broke a tree trunk. Did you guys hear that one? That was a... That one was kind of loud. Yeah, that was kind of loud. Ooh. That was another critical hit right there. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I feel like 3 years younger. I feel like 3 years younger after that one. The Hoyo VA drama has gotten even more insane since your vid. They just keep dogpiling different VAs now for who they're following. Oh, so just more of the exact same? Yeah, I heard they're moving on to Kafka's VA and somebody else's VA now. Yeah, I heard they're just moving on. Infinity VA. Oh, is this a follow up on the Alto situation? Oh boy, oh boy. What is even going on over here? Oh dear. Is this by none other than Ophanot? Oh, he is. I feel like he's really getting caught up in his feelings right now. Okay, I'm not reading this shit. I'm good. I'm good on reading that shit. I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I ain't reading that shit. What about this one? What about this one? I like how he's presenting the situation in two ways. He's acting like there's only two possible pathways forward. Send a customer service email or do this. And my take on this is, why are you even upset enough to the point regarding a literal joke, which you would tell after watching the video it's a joke? Why would you go ahead and then proceed to feel so offended by like one of the most harmless jokes I've ever seen in my life? And then feel the need to start sending you're literally being a Karen right now. He's literally being a Karen right now. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. To close out the Alto, I will tag you. Despite diving deep, you did such a shallow job. You didn't even read my because I. What's the point of reading your bitchy ass customer support messages when it's being sent because you're like offended over nothing? This is like saying, "Oh my god!" Like, I saw somebody eating ice cream, right? They were eating ice cream on a cone, right? And then they spilled some of the ice cream on the ground, and then I immediately started schizoing out because they were littering. And so I immediately started writing a message to my city council. I also went to the police. I filed a report about this evil child that's littering all over the street. They're spilling ice cream everywhere. Fucking demonic. And then you go ahead, you start advertising how you contacted the police, the city council, even the fucking UN, because this crazy evil child was going around spilling ice cream on the floor during a hot summer day. And then you went ahead, you posted your complaint online, and then somebody says, this is such a retarded reason to even file a police report in the first place. I'm not even going to bother reading it because the reason's so stupid. And then you're out here bitching and moaning that somebody didn't read your full police report. And once again, you filed it because a kid spilled ice cream on the floor in the middle of summer. That's genuinely it. And so if the basis of your customer service message is fucking stupid, then I'm going to read part of your message and then there's no point. Isn't this just a one guy? This is the thing. I've had previous interactions with him, so this is more so a favor. I've already said multiple times I don't think he's necessarily a bad person, but in this current topic, he's acting like a fucking dumbass. So yeah, no, I just said that multiple times. So I'm not really sure why he's so like I don't know why he's like deciding to double or triple down. Um, it's just this guy is basically just representing like some oversensitive part of the player base that literally is just like it's just there's absolutely no reason for any of this. That's the main point. There's absolutely no reason. Guys, we've already played the clip. We've literally played the clip. Let me go see if I can find it again actually. Guys, I'll show you. I'll show you the clip right here of what is getting schizoed out over. Let's just look up canon. You guys ready for this one? Hey, protect your eardrums.
If I get Brant in this 10 pull, it's confirmed, it's canon that Brant and Alto are lovers.
That that's what we decided to send a report to customer service about. Like that it like a little offhand joke pulling on a banner with literally no astrite left. Like if you just simply look at like the like this is literally he has no 10 pulls left. This is his last one. And so he just makes a joke on his last 10 pull talking that saying that if I manage to get this character with my last 10 pulls, they must love me. Because that's not what's typically supposed to happen. I'm supposed to not get them in the last 10 pulls, but if they do, they love me. Like this is like to make a big deal out of this to the point where you're messaging customer support because this just was so unacceptable to you. That's what I'm saying is fucking weird. And so the fact that I have to reiterate this again and that this motherfucker like doubled down on it, like clutching their fucking pearls, like, oh my god, what he did was unacceptable. Like, you look so sensitive, it's crazy. Like, I don't understand why you're so offended to the point where you felt the need to start contacting customer support over this issue. Like, what, like, do you have a panic attack when you go outside? Like, what's even going on over here?
If I get Brant in this 10 pull, it's confirmed, it's canon that Brant and Alto are lovers.
Like, if that's enough to get you sending messages to customer support, I genuinely think that if you walked into like your local Walmart, you'd start like fucking you need to go to the hospital afterwards. Good god. Good god, guys. They started tagging Amanda to try to bring her into it. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, good on her for not getting involved then, because this is one of the biggest non-issues in the history of non-issues. It's the it's the biggest non-issue in the history of non-issues, which is the point. That's exactly the point. I say as much. It's like y'all are flipping out over this. There's no way. I would have to believe because of how obviously terrible the context of the original post was. It's actually just genuinely like an AstroTurf situation. They took this segment from stream and packaged it in literally the worst way possible, removed all context and made it look like he was abusing his position as a VA to try to like fucking say something about the story when it's like literally it's so abundantly clear. It's like so abundantly clear this is like a one-off joke. Yeah, it's like let's just be honest over here. Like I don't understand who like there's clearly somebody trying to like make this situation look way worse than it actually is because they removed all context when they were talking about it in their prior posts. Absolutely all context removed. Oh, Jesus Christ. Like where like did these guys like all like remove the baseline post as well? I don't even fucking care anymore. Whatever, right? There's nothing has changed at all from the video that we recorded yesterday. We're just gonna upload it later today. And then just go expose a bunch of people clutching their pearls like they're fucking like literally the fucking modern day Karens over here just like fucking finding anything to complain about. Like, gosh, guys, I'm gonna be real over here. There's plenty of things to actually complain about when it comes to Wuthering Waves. Why don't you concentrate your efforts on that instead of literally fighting ghosts? Alrighty. I'm tired of that shit. I don't care. It's so like it's just you guys are I'm this is how I'll summarize the situation. Stop being fucking losers. Like be like stop being people that like other people want to avoid. Okay, because that's what you're fucking doing right now. Straight up. It's like I would meet any of you guys and like I would see this interaction. I'd just be like, I just get the fuck away from me. Right? Like I'm not fucking talking to you. Like go away, you fucking weirdo. right? That's I mean, those are probably statements that they've heard. Like, there are certain statements certain people hear way more often than others, and there's a good likelihood that "get the fuck away from me" is something that these individuals have heard a lot more than others in their life. All right. Alrighty. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we have finally been blessed with, I believe, some of the final bit of news in regards to the release of Galbrena in Wuthering Waves version 2.7. And of course, we're going to have to take this piece by piece, starting off with, I believe, some of the most important stuff. And that first bit is, of course, going to be her kit reveal, which we'll be able to figure out everything that's going on over here, as well as her combat showcase. And I was a little bit late on the uptake over here. Apparently this was spelled Withering Waves for a couple of hours right after release, but it looks like that intern has been fired and the name has been changed back. So yeah, Galbrena is here, ladies and gentlemen. All the news is ready to go. Let's go. I just realized I wasn't even pressing recording. I wasn't even pressing. Hey, you know what? Hey, at least we didn't go too far. At least we didn't go too far. Let's try that again. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, what is my record button not working? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, Wuthering Waves has been coming out with quite a bit of news regarding Galbrena, and of course, Wuthering Waves version 2.7. And we're going to take some of the time today to just go over all of the incredible new things that have come up in store, and we'll be taking that into parts. And the first part that we're, of course, going to be focusing our attention on is going to be the full kit reveal of Galbrena with everything. When it comes to her character, as well as a preview of her animations, alongside, of course, her combat showcase. And this one's a bit of a shorter one, and apparently there was actually a typo where the devs or the intern, whoever was involved, spelled it as Withering Waves. But that person has been fired, and now the name has changed back. So why don't we go ahead, give it a bit of a look, and see what this one is all about. Okay, why is she aura farming like this? Why is she aura farming like this to such a high degree in this trailer? It's got a different vibe than the other combat showcases. I mean, we've already said it a bunch of times, right? Like DMC inspired, that sort of stuff. The animation is really like low FPS, but it kind of has like its own charm. It's like extremely low frames per second, but it like makes it better. Oh man, okay.
Galbrena, ready to join the hunt.
Okay, they're just going crazy with the music over here. She has like the most like hyper pop like track out of pretty much I think any unit that's been released so far. Let's just pick it up from here.
Let's settle the score.
I feel like they're doing... I think a lot of people thought when pistol users were going to be in Wuthering Waves, they would all be like, you know, the kind of like boring pistol users, right? Where all you got are like these, everyone has the same air attack, all of this stuff. But yeah, I think afterwards, now that we've seen Carlotta, and now that we've seen this kit, yeah, I don't think anyone really cares about who the pistol users of the future are going to be. Yeah, the 5-star kits at the very least seem to be pretty damn good. Oh.
By my trigger.
Okay, yeah, let me just go back to here a second. Yeah, I still love this shit. Yeah, I think I've made an effort to comment on the whole like tacit mark branding that appears in pretty much every single trailer and combat showcase video. I do greatly enjoy that they're adding so much like variation and stuff into how they're presenting these designs. Like over here, right? It's so character specific. We got that goddamn snake. I don't even know what it's doing. It's like making the infinity symbol, right? And when you understand like Galbrena's lore and the fact that she like eats tacit discords to like fuel Chimera, a tacit discord inside of her, yeah, the whole like infinite thing makes even more sense. So it's even like lore related.
By my trigger. Enter Hell's Gate. Scorches to rise from Hellfire.
That's actually kind of sick. Wait, does that voice line play in combat?
Gate.
Scorches to I really like the voice of, I do believe that's Chimera. I really do like the voice of Chimera. They're just like over here like talking shit in the background. I hope they're very, very, very active in combat and you hear them very often.
Rise from Hellfire.
Okay, why is my quality like fucking low? Let's 720p? Motherfucker.
Rise from Hellfire. Tainted Hellfire.
I wonder if she's gonna be one of those characters where you actually do have a use case for her air attacks. Because I'm gonna be real over here, right? There's a lot of moves in Wuthering Waves that are kind of like very... the way that I would describe them would be cosmetic, in that you don't ever actually use them. I would love to see if this one's more of like an AoE version that you want to use in like Whimpering Wastes. Because like, look at that. That's some pretty good like AoE coverage. It would be cool if she's a character where you, like, use this attack in Whimpering Wastes, and then you use, like, different ones in the TOA.
Tainted Hellfire!
Devour them all!
Who's my next prey?
Did you see the sense?
That is the same bar that Frolova was in. Yeah, if you guys remember Frolova's showcase, this is, like, the same bar.
It really opened up their coffers.
What is she up to?
The usual.
This is the upfront. Finish the...
This is, okay, this is 1000% Witcher vibes. And even the person giving her the task also sounds kind of like evil. I don't know. You guys remember how I said there was going to be that whole, you know, Galbrena's going to have a killing monsters scene? I don't know. I feel like that's going to be in her showcase now. This guy over here, yo, I'm going to be real with you. He seems a little bit evil. He seems a little bit evil, right? So he's probably going to, like, give her a task to go do something. She's gonna find out he's actually like some corrupt politician doing some crazy shit or something like that. And then she's gonna, in the trailer, right, probably go ahead and murk him. And I need her to drop that line, though.
This is the upfront. Finish the job,
Just tell me, is it a worthy opponent?
Well, very excited for the whole Resonator showcase that's going to be coming out probably in like 32, whatever, 20-something hours from now. We'll see. It usually follows 2 days after this. But overall, I would say it was a decent one. I wouldn't say this is like the best combat showcase ever. The music was something that I really liked, but, you know, overall, I'm not going to go ahead and say it was like a 10 out of 10, and blows the other ones out of the water. I think like ones like Yuno's, for reasons, as well as like Augusta's, I kind of like those ones a little bit better, at least in my opinion. But naturally, right, I think we gotta wait until the showcase, the full Resonator showcase, to make our full judgments on this pre-release stuff. So anyways, that's all we're gonna cover for the trailer. Now let's go ahead and just start breaking down the kit for Galbrena over here. And just to like keep a couple of things, you know, kind of like get our scheduling in order, We're going to start off with a simplified kit overview, then go into a more detailed breakdown of everything that's going to be going on with her abilities. So with that out of the way, let's just start off with, well, her attribute, weapon type, and upgrade materials. So she's going to be a fusion pistol user. We've pretty much known that for a couple of months by now. And she's going to level up using Stone Rose, which I do believe is a new 2.7 material. I don't think we can actually collect these right now. I am happy to be corrected on that one, though, but I don't think I've actually ever seen any of these. As well as the Blighted Crown of the Puppet King. Oh, you can farm it? Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. I spread some misinformation over here. You can find this in Murmurstown, which is appropriate. You can find this in Murmurstown, which is appropriate given the fact that she grew up there. So, yeah, you've got that ready to go, as well as the Blighted Crown of the Puppet King, which is the boss drop from the Sovereign. Well, that's also the boss in Murmurstown. So, you'll be able to farm up all of her level up materials with no issues at all. The only real issue you'll have in upgrading is going to be her skills, because, well, you're going to need the new weekly boss mat to do it. However, do make sure you understand that you can early access the new weekly boss immediately when the patch typically drops. Who knows? They've been hiding it in the livestream reveal, so maybe that's one that they won't let you do early access of. Hopefully they will, otherwise it's going to be really hard to build Galbrena. So, yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. We know very little about this. We don't even know the boss that it's dropping from, so they might not let us access it early. When it comes to her combat roles now, we've got her as a main damage dealer, and she's also going to deal heavy attack damage. This is one of the shortest combat roles lists I think we've ever seen. Now let's go ahead and get right on into her normal attack. And this is what I meant by simplified overview first, then a more detailed one. Kuro typically has started splitting out their kits to go with a more, surface level one, and then they start diving into the specifics of the abilities down over here, as you can clearly see. It's much longer. So, just starting off with the introductory one, we've got her normal attack. The first one's going to be basic attack, deal fusion damage. Heavy attack, consume stamina, deal fusion damage. And the mid-air attack is where it gets a little bit interesting. She's going to press normal attack while in the air to just plunge like that, but she's also going to have the ability to hold the normal attack button to continuously consume her stamina and then launch a bunch of shots at the people below. And you'll be able to see that animation right about here. We all know that one, right? The very cool spin twirl move. She's also going to have a dodge counter. That's just going to advance her basic attack chain, right? Pretty typical overall for a character you're just seeing over here. Nothing too crazy. Nothing too crazy that we're looking at. Now, let's take a look at her resonant skill. First one's going to be it's going to be called Edge Transcended, and she's just going to charge forward and deal fusion damage. I don't even know if you're going to use this one very often. It looks like it doesn't do anything. The second one, though, is going to be called Ascent of Malice. And so, this is where her first resource in her kit is going to be listed out. At full Synth Flame, and this is the attack over here, at full Synth Flame, resonant skill is replaced with Ascent of Malice. She's going to slash at enemies, deal fusion damage, and then enter the Demon Hypostasis mode. You can probably guess this is going to be her form switching mode. So you're probably going to be building up her Synth Flame outside of this state, and then when your Synth Flame is full, you're going to use Ascent of Malice, and then enter Demon Hypostasis, and that Synth Flame you were generating is going to be converted into Purging Flame, which is, you can probably guess what's going on over here. You build a resource in one mode, you transform, and then you consume the resource in the other mode. Pretty typical sort of gameplay over here. I think we're pretty used to that at this point. Because there's a lot of characters, even like Havoc Rover. They all have mechanics like that. Now let's get on into her liberation. Attack the target and deal fusion damage. And she's going to gain a multiplier increase for various enhanced attacks during Demon Hypostasis. So I think that this has like two components to it. The first is just dealing damage. And I think there's a passive component as well. Either maybe it's like a buff or maybe it's just a passive where she goes ahead and gains, well, more damage on all of her attacks. So kind of just like an enhanced state and a lot of different buffs that are being applied to her to increase her damage after she enters the enhanced state. That's what it looks like over here. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at her Forte circuit. And this is where stuff's going to get a little bit wordy, even on the more simplified version. So, beyond Threshold. By default, Galbrena is in the Threshold state, and in this state, she accumulates Afterflame and Synth Flame. While in Demon Hypostasis, remember, she starts off in Threshold, and then when her Sin Flame is full, she transforms into Demon Hypostasis. While in Demon Hypostasis, basic, heavy, midair, and dodge counter attacks and resonance skill are all enhanced. And during this period, attacks will consume Purging Flame on hit. While she's in Demon Hypostasis, the more Afterflame Galbrena has, the more damage enemies take from various enhanced moves. And when Purging Flame depletes, Galbrena exits Demon Hypostasis automatically. So you should think about it this way when it comes to these three resources: Afterflame, Sin Flame, and Purging Flame. This is basically how it works. You'll build up Afterflame and Sin Flame prior to entering Demon Hypostasis. And when you're in Demon Hypostasis, your Afterflame that you have is going to buff your overall damage, and then you'll consume Purging Flame, which Sin Flame directly translates into. The thing that's a little bit missing from this description is all the stuff regarding Afterflame, so we'll cover that in just a second. Alright, so now moving on to Hellstride. Press dodge while in a combat action to deal fusion damage. This does not interrupt the hit counter of the basic and heavy attack stages. So basically, dodging is really additionally beneficial for Galbrena's kit. She actually has like some built-in damage whenever she triggers a dodge. So yeah, and you know, it doesn't interrupt her basic attack chains. So very meant to embody that whole sort of like stylish combat playstyle. Very Devil May Cry-y for sure. Next, she's got Burning Drive. Casting intro skill, Hellstride, enhanced basic attack 4, and all resonance skills will increase Galbrena's attack and resistance to interruptions within a certain period of time. This to me just reads like an inherent skill that's just tacked onto her forte. Cool that she has all of these self-damage bonuses simply from just using regular ass attacks. And next, the Forte gauge. And this is where we're going to get an in-depth explanation of Afterflame and Sin Flame. So while in the Threshold state, Galbrena recovers Afterflame when nearby resonators in the team use an Echo skill. Echoes with the same name can only trigger this effect once, and this effect resets when Galbrena exits Demon Hypostasis. All Afterflame is removed upon exiting Demon Hypostasis, and while in the Threshold state, hitting an enemy with various types of skills recovers Sin Flame. So this is, again, a bit of a review of her resources. She builds up Afterflame when other teammates use Echo skills. That just boosts all of her outgoing damage during Demon Hypostasis. Sin Flame is a resource that when full allows her to enter Demon Hypostasis. And when she enters Demon Hypostasis, her Sin Flame is converted into Purging Flame. And Purging Flame is what she uses to, well, trigger her attacks. So that's essentially how her entire Forte circuit ends up working out. And when you take a first look at it, it might seem a little bit confusing, but overall, I wouldn't say it's too hard to get a grasp of, how you're going to be managing all of this stuff. So, yeah, that's actually going to be the shortened overview of her kit. And you guys might have realized, well, boy, oh boy, this isn't really that long. However, there are a couple of things that I want to talk about right off the bat before we dive into, the more in-depth overview. And let me just pop open my game real fast. Yeah. Give me 1 second over here. Give me 1 second over here. Oh, yeah, I gotta turn off my volume, too. Okay. Okay. So, now we're back. And one thing that I just want to make clear for individuals when it comes to things like echo skills, and that whole Afterflame generation, is that there aren't actually a lot of abilities in the game that count actively as echo skills. One character in particular that really shows you what these echo skills are all about is Cantarella. And you basically need a description in your ability that says something like this. Casting this skill is also considered casting an echo skill, right? That's on her liberation. And then, of course, right, you've got a bunch of abilities in her forte circuit over here. Casting this ability is also considered an echo skill. And then in her attack over here, casting this skill, or when in Mirage, Resonant skill becomes Flickering Reverie, which is considered an echo skill, right? And Cantarell is currently the only character in the game with 4 echo skills, because you would count all of those, as well as the echo that's in her main slot. And Rosia is the other character in the game that has an echo skill actually built into her gadget that she gives upon an outro skill. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think it's pretty clear that Galbrena is probably not meant to be used with Cantarella or Rosia, considering she's a heavy attack damage dealer, and none of these characters actually buff her. So there's probably going to be, you can imagine, another character on the roster who's probably going to, use the Law of Harmony set. They're going to work better with it, and, well, you can just read it over here. Yeah, that's how the Law of Harmony set works. And so most people have done, like, the theorizing, and they figured out that Shu Yan is the character that this one is for, because otherwise it just doesn't really make that much sense. Because, well, the 4-cost echo for this set gives, arrow damage bonus, so you can probably guess who that's for. Yeah, that's pretty much a confirmation that she's going to have a better slot in when it comes to actually activating this Afterflame mechanic. Just something for you guys to think about. And don't worry, Chu Yan's kit should be in the game. It should be in the game at the start of the 2.7 update, so we will be making sure to do a bit of a deep dive, a bit of an analysis of that bad boy once it is out closer to the start of the patch, so you can fully see what sort of synergies are developing over here. So that's just something to keep in mind. I know people are asking questions about Mortefi right now. We're actually going to wait until we see what parts of her damage are actually considered heavy attack first to start talking about the viability of some other supports. But we're only going to get to that in the more detailed overview of what's exactly in her kit. So now let's start taking a look at some of the Concerto abilities. All right, the first one is her intro skill. Deal damage. Okay. Second one's going to be the outro skill. And this one's really going to blow your mind, right? Attack the target, dealing fusion damage. That's the intro skill. Here's the outro skill. Attack the target, dealing fusion damage. That's the outro skill. Not too much to talk about over here, ladies and gentlemen. She's got one of the more simple kits in the game. I don't really know what else to say. Now let's move on to the combat guide. And this one, I think, gives a pretty good description for how she's going to play. When Resonators in the team use an Echo skill, Galbrena obtains Afterflame, which increases the damage dealt during the next Demon Hypostasis. Pretty simple. Press dodge during combat actions to cast Hellstride. Casting this skill increases Galbrena's attack and resistance to interruption within a certain period of time, and does not reset the attack cycle in action for a short time. There's a lot more attacks that also do this. I don't know why they listed this one out specifically. Probably just to promote dodging in her gameplay. While in the threshold state, Galbrena accumulates Synflame when her attacks hit a target. And when Synflame reaches 100 points, use the Resonant skill to enter Hypostasis. And when in Hypostasis, 100 points of Purging Flame are obtained by consuming all the Synflame. 100 to 100. Pretty simple. And while in Demon Hypostasis, the more Afterflame Galbrena has, the more damage enemies take from her attacks. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty clear, or should be pretty clear to a lot of people who have been watching these kit reveals, these kit breakdowns. She's got one of, if not possibly, the most simple kits in the game. And the perspective that I have is that she's probably going to actually be very easy to play. I think she's meant to be a bit more of like a less complex unit, which is, I think it is a little bit potentially questionable to have a playstyle that smells this simple right after the release of a character like Augusta, right? But it's also no lie at all to say that there's been some more difficult characters released across the 2.x version. And I would say the only real, like, easy ones, right, are, like, Augusta as well as Carlotta. So maybe this is just a bit more of, like, I wouldn't necessarily say, like, free-to-play friendly, but I would say, like, no hands friendly sort of player. Because that's what it seems like. She seems like she has a very easy kit to use. So now let's go ahead. Let's do a bit of a deeper breakdown of her attacks, her damage types, all of that. Because believe me when I say this, this is a way more detailed overview, and it's got a lot more specifics. So we'll be spending a lot more time over here. Let's start reading it all out, starting with the normal attack, Slayer's Trigger. Perform up to 4 consecutive attacks, dealing fusion damage, dealing fusion damage, and this is a basic attack. Basic attack stage 1 to 3 damage is considered heavy attack. Basic attack 4 damage is considered as echo skill. So hopefully you guys are beginning to see right now, she's got kind of an interesting damage split going on. Then she can press a normal attack right after performing basic attack stage 4 to perform basic attack stage 2. So now you can kind of see what's going on over here. She pretty much is prompting you to use a lot of basic attacks, and they're all going to deal either heavy attack or echo skill damage. Now it's time to move on to her actual heavy attack, Volley of Death. She's going to consume stamina to attack the target and perform up to 3 consecutive attacks that all deal fusion damage. The third hit is considered echo skill damage. She can also press the normal attack right after using that heavy attack to perform her basic attack chain from stage 2. And then she's going to use a normal right after performing the heavy attack stage 2 or 3 to go into the third stage of her basic. So you're seeing over here, she actually has a lot of like these animations, sort of like shortening animation skips to change it to like basic to chain into like other parts of her attack chain. There's a lot of like complexity actually written in here. But the unfortunate part about this sort of like built-in complexity is that oftentimes you don't actually have to engage with too much of it. And the biggest example that I actually want to talk about is like Augusta and like her 17 different types of like normal attacks that she can use, right? It's like you go into her normal attack page for Augusta and like you just see dodge counter, thunder roar, backstep, and like dodge counter, heavy attack. Nobody uses these, right? It's a bunch of like neat stuff that's built into her kit that lets you do like some fun stuff. But if you're trying to like, if you just do like an optimal rotation or like a beginner friendly rotation that'll just clear all the content in the game, yeah, you're never actually using any of these. And so there's just a similar sort of action going on over here for, well, this heavy attack. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now we're going to have her mid-air attack, Ashfall Barrage. And so while in mid-air, press the normal attack to consume stamina to just do a plunging attack, which is also considered heavy attack damage, or hold the button to, you know, kind of do that shooting move, right, where we're getting a large area underneath us. If Galbrena does not land when interrupted by the barrage, she cannot cast the skill again. So yeah, you can't just like chain together. You can't just like chain together a bunch of like air attacks, dodge in the air, and then do another set of air attacks. It'd be kind of neat if you could. I don't think it would be that broken, but I guess maybe the gameplay just looked a little bit too goofy for that one. She's also going to be able to press a normal attack right after using a plunge attack to just immediately use a basic attack stage 3. So there's a lot of different combos that she can use, but do keep in mind that there's always going to be like an optimal rotation that you're going to use in baseline situations, and those will probably never be as complicated as what the kit can actually allow. So yeah, we'll be making sure to explore that when she gets closer to release, but you can make her gameplay spicier if you're into it, but just at a baseline, her kit just really isn't that complex. Now we're going to have her dodge counter, Blood for Blood. Press the normal attack right after a successful dodge, and as you can see over here, it's going to deal heavy attack damage, and then you'll basically be able to skip to this fourth stage of your basic attack chain, which is pretty good, right? Especially considering they all deal like echo skill damage, all of that. One thing to keep in mind, though, as you're reading this, is that a lot of her attacks, from what we're seeing, are dealing this thing called echo skill damage. And one thing is pretty clear about echo skill damage. there's not a lot of ways to boost it in the game. There's very few ways to boost echo skill damage in the game. And what I'll just go through right now are some of the different ways that you can actually trigger it, right? So the first one's going to be the most, like, free-to-play of them all, right? The Law of Harmony Echo set, which requires somebody else on the team to actually activate it. And that's going to allow you to have up to, well, 16% echo skill damage. So that's one source of it, which is, you know, it's a modest amount. It's pretty decent. Another source that you're going to have is going to be on the Flaming Claw Prince set currently, and that's going to be, well, the Corsair Echo. And this thing is going to provide a passive bonus of 12% fusion damage and then 20% echo skill. So it's pretty clear who's actually supposed to be using this set by now. I think we already talked about it way earlier on. But yeah, that's what it's looking like over there. Yeah, that 20% echo skill damage. And the third is going to be, of course, a method that not everybody's going to be able to access. The Gacha. Because, as you can probably see over here, you're going to gain some echo damage amplification, which is going to be available on Galbrena's actual weapon, Lux and Umbra. And that's going to be about 24% over here. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. This stat is not as available as I wish, but you do get a pretty healthy chunk from the Corsair. I will say that. It is kind of impressive that the Corsair's echo skill damage bonus is 20%, which is like more than the entire Law of Harmony echo set, right? Which is on your support at its max number of stats. So this actually does seem to be a pretty respectable amount. Maybe that's enough, but we'll just have to see, right? After some initial testing, after some initial gameplay. So yeah, that's going to be our basic or her basic attacks. Now let's take a look at her resident skill. Edge Transcended. So, first one's going to be called Encroach. She's going to dash forward, leap into the air, and flip backward upon hitting a target, and deal heavy attack damage. You're seeing that she basically only deals heavy attack damage or echo skill damage. That's pretty much it. It seems like there's nothing else that's being fueled in her kit. Now, Ascent of Malice. This is the enhanced resonance skill. Upon reaching 100 points of Sin Flame, resonance skill is replaced with Ascent of Malice. She's going to slash at enemies with her wings, deal fusion damage, which is also considered heavy attack, again. And then she's going to enter Demon Hypostasis, convert Sin Flame, and actually be able to follow up with the second stage of her Forte Enhanced attack chain. And don't worry, we'll see that later. Now we got Resonance Liberation, Hellfire Absolution. Attack the target, deal fusion damage, which is considered echo skill damage. Once again, this is another unique damage type, and gain 85% damage multiplier increase for her basic attacks, the Forte Enhanced versions, the Forte Enhanced Heavy Attack, her Forte Enhanced Midair Attack, and Special Dodge Counter. This is basically, all of these attacks are only available while she's in Demon Hypostasis. So yeah, you enter Hypostasis, then you shoot off this bad boy, apply a bunch of self buffs, and then go to town for 14 seconds. That's how she works. Alright, she's going to press the normal attack after casting a Resonance Liberation to cast the second stage of her basic attack. And you're seeing over here, right? Oh! Lot of opportunities for us to advance into the second stage. One over here, and one over here as well. It can also be cast in midair. Next, her Forte Circuit. And this is where we're gonna get a lot of information when it comes to all of these different attacks, right? The buffed versions that are available. So, Beyond Threshold. By default, Galbrena's in the Threshold state, and in this state, she accumulates Agile Flame and Sin Flame. We all know about that one. And so, while she's in Demon Hypostasis, she gains access to all of these attacks. Basically, all of her baseline, basic, heavy, midair, dodge counter attacks, and her Resonance skill. They're all going to be replaced with different versions during her Forte. And they're all just going to have different names, but they'll function pretty similarly. All of the Forte Enhanced attacks are just going to consume, well, okay, there's clearly a typo in here. They're all going to consume the new resource that she has, which she generates, right? Where, oh my gosh, there's a fat-ass typo in here. So... they're all going to consume the resource that she generates after consuming the 100 Threshold Flame. And then after she transforms, that 100, Sin Flame is going to be confirmed or converted into Purging Flame. And basically, all of these attacks over here are going to consume Purging Flame. Yeah, there's clearly a fat-ass typo in here. Good, well done, Kuro Games. So yeah, that's essentially the breakdown over here. I know it looks super confusing. It's really not. While in Demon Hypostasis, every point of Afterflame is going to increase the damage of your base of all of those attacks by 1.5% up to 60%. And that buff is going to be removed after you exit Demon Hypostasis. So yeah, building up this Afterflame is kind of important, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of characters on the roster that can currently do it right now, because that is up to a 60% damage bonus that we're seeing over here. And when Purging Flame depletes, remember, that's the resource that you get after converting your Sin Flame. When Purging Flame depletes, or after staying in Demon Hypostasis for over 50 seconds, it's going to end automatically. So, yeah, I don't think they really needed to add this line in here. 50 seconds is absolutely nuts. It's just like an overworld thing at that point. Now, let's just move on and take a look at some of the Forte enhanced attacks. The first one's going to be Seraphic Execution, and this is going to be a 5-hit basic attack chain. Stages 1 to 3 are considered heavy attack damage, and stages 4 to 5 are considered echo skill damage. And she can press a normal attack after basic attack stage 5 to immediately go into basic attack stage 3. And the thing is, you're never actually going to be using basic attack stage 1, because when you read her kit, she has a bunch of advancements in things like her enhanced skill and her liberation can be followed by basic attack Seraphic Execution stage 2. While in Demon Hypostasis, cast basic attack Seraphic Execution stage 2 instead. So, really, as you're starting to see over here, her gameplay is actually starting to consist of press her liberation and then spam the basic attack button. Because, well, you can see what's going on, right? You'll go into stage 2, then you'll do stages 2 and 3, then 4 and 5, and then if you use the basic attack button again, you'll go back to 3, and then do 4 and 5 again. That's kind of like how her kit seems to be broken down over here. There's a lot of left mouse button clicking because there's a lot of, well, attack chain skipping that we're doing as well. Naturally, we're going to have to take a look at the damage multipliers, but I think there's a reason why all of these mechanics are being built in. Next, we're going to have our heavy attack, Flame Wing Verdict. This is going to consume stamina to attack the target, perform it to 3 consecutive attacks. She's going to consume Purging Flame on hit, and the third hit of this attack chain is considered echo skill damage. She can press the normal attack after using Flame Wing Verdict stage 1, and then she can immediately go into Seraphic Execution stage 2, and then she can also press a normal attack after stages 2 and 3 to go into a Seraphic Execution stage 3. So you're beginning to notice over here, right? A lot of different ways to advance into the attack chain, but they're all shortcuts to the basic attack chain. So logic would have me believe that the basic attacks are primarily the main thing that you're supposed to be using, because they're all going to deal heavy attack or echo skill damage anyways, much like all these other ones, and they're all, everything is going into this. Now, let's read the mid-air attack, Hellsent Barrage. While in mid-air, press normal attack to consume stamina, do the aerial attacks, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's the same exact sort of attack that we just saw before, except when she lands with the plunging attack, she'll be able to advance into Seraphic Execution instead of just her regular basic attack chain. That's pretty much it. And for her dodge counter, same exact thing going on. She'll deal heavy attack damage on a dodge and then be able to advance into later stages of her basic attack chain. That's pretty much it. And do remember, she gains a damage bonus, right? She gains a damage bonus, all of this, deals damage as well, and doesn't interrupt her attack chain whenever she uses a dodge. So this attack over here, you're probably going to want to use it pretty frequently, if possible, right? But don't go, running into enemies intentionally just to do it. Now we got Resonance Skill Ravage. Dash forward and leap into the air, flip backward, blah, blah, blah. Same exact sort of dynamic as the regular skill. These all just kind of have different names, and that's just to signify that they're consuming Purging Flame to actually be used. And so, now let's go ahead, let's read more of the dodge mechanic in depth. Hellstride. Press dodge on the ground while casting Galbrena's own skills to use Hellstride and deal a fixed amount of fusion damage. That's going to be considered basic attack damage that doesn't bear any effect from damage buffs. I think this is meant to just be a neat little damage bonus for dodging. I don't think you're meant to use it as like a primary damage source because I don't think this is going to scale off of anything because it literally says it can't scale off of anything. It cannot be cast consecutively, but it can trigger successful dodges. And casting this skill does not reset the attack cycle within a short period of time. And do remember, she's got a lot of different ways to advance her attack chain, and one of the main ones is just completing an attack chain. So that's pretty nice to see. Next, we have Burning Drive, and this is her damage boosting passive over here, and this one's pretty important. Casting intro skill Hellstride, normal attack Seraphic Execution, Seraphic Execution Stage 4, Resonant Skill Encroach, Resonant Skill Ascent of Malice, and Resonant Skill Ravage. They're all going to increase Galbrena's resistance to interruptions and attack by 20% for 4 seconds. So, yeah, just a nice little self-buff over here. She's encouraged to dodge, but she can also tank some hits as well with all that stuff built in. Pretty neat stuff as a whole. Now let's read Afterflame. And remember, I think we already got like an in-depth overview of this mechanic, but not the specific numbers. Galbrena can hold up to 40 points of Afterflame. While in the threshold state, Galbrena recovers 8 points of Afterflame when resonators in the nearby team use an echo skill. So let's just think about it this way. Every team at a baseline has 3 echo skills because you got 3 teammates. That's 24 out of her 40, just without any other echo skill enabling mechanics. A character would require 3 more echo skills to be able to max out this bonus. Sorry, only 2 more echo skills. I'm tripping. Yeah, so 24 at a baseline, right? 24 at a baseline from the 3 members of your team, and then you would need an additional 2. However, I don't know if Galbrena's own echo skill counts for this situation, and if her own echo skill doesn't count, then you would only have 16 out of 40, and so you would need an additional, 3 to be able to trigger it. And so, this is the situation, right? At a baseline, you're still going to be able to get close to half, if not more than half, of this 60% damage bonus that she has available. So she just gets a little bit extra. It's not like she's going from 0 to 60% more damage with, we can go ahead and see it over here, right? We see how Afterflame boosted up to 60%. She's never going to be at 0. And typically, I would imagine she's at 36% at a baseline, which isn't really that bad. And so having the additional teammates, right, just will result in her attacks getting a slightly higher damage bonus. And, well, let's just be entirely honest here. If she's using a character like Chuyan specifically, one team that she's probably not going to be able to use if she's using Chuyan is Mono Fusion. And let me just be honest with you about a couple of things when it comes to Mono Fusion, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's got its own damage bonuses for sure. Yeah, right. We got things like up to 15% fusion resistance ignore. We've got things like 18% attack and like 20% fusion damage bonus. We've also got set effects, right? Like a flaming claw print and stuff like that, as well as potentially even Lupa's weapon as well for even more fusion damage. This is kind of like the trade-off and the balancing that's being done over here, right? Because this basically means that she isn't using mono fusion. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's not really a fusion character that has a bunch of different echo skills. Maybe that'll be something that comes out in the future. But that's something you gotta keep in mind as well. Because I think that if she was able to have this full damage buff in the mono fusion team, it would probably be a little bit too strong. Or she would have to be undertuned elsewhere in her kit to make sure that she's not too strong in that team. So that's just something like on the balancing scale to actually keep in mind. Because being fusion, being a fusion character is one of the best attributes in the game, at least in terms of your meta viability, because you already have one of the most stable cores on the roster over here, and just having like a third, Chang Li is the most replaceable member of this team. If you put in an Encore, you put in a Chisha instead of her, the team basically almost functions very identically. You'll have like seconds of difference in clear time. That's how stable this core is. And so basically any fusion character that comes out as like a potential DPS is just easily able to shine in this lineup. Yeah, that's just the truth of the matter because of how strong that core is. So yeah, that's our overview of the Afterflame mechanic. Once again, you'll still get it at a baseline, but you can maximize it further with more echo skills on your team. And of course, the Law of Harmony set. Galbrena, or so Synflame is going to be the last resource. I don't even know why that started playing now. Galbrena can hold up to 100 points of Sin Flame while in the threshold state, hitting an enemy with a basic, heavy, blah, 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 all of that. It's all just going to recover Sin Flame. So, yeah, that's not too complex over here. Now, let's read her intro skill. Attack the target and deal fusion damage. She can also hold the normal attack after casting this skill to cast a heavy attack, Volley of Death Stage 2, and while in Demon Hypostasis, she'll be able to use Flamewing Verdict instead. She can also press the normal attack right after casting this skill to perform a basic attack Stage 2, which is replaced with the enhanced version if she's in Demon Hypostasis. So, it's pretty clear. The intro skill does let you advance some things. It's not as basic as just attack the target and deal fusion damage, and chances are you're probably just going to go ahead right into some basic attack chains. Outro skill. Attack the target, dealing fusion damage equal to a pretty decent chunk of Galbrena's attack. I kind of actually like seeing a more basic outro skill. It's been a while since we've had an outro skill that just deals damage. I'm going to be real with you over here. I think the last time we had an outro skill that just dealt damage was Carlotta's. Yeah, it was like Carlotta's was the last time we had an outro skill that just dealt damage. So it's kind of nice to see one of these again. I do think that her motion value is actually higher than Carlotta's, though. Or maybe it's exactly the same. Yeah, I think it's exactly the same. All right, now let's get into the inherent skill, the first one over here. One stack of Fated End is inflicted on the target when the following skills hit. Every single ability in her fucking kit. Yeah, I think that's just every single attack in her kit. I'm not going to bother reading these out. Yeah, that's my take. I think it's every single attack. So, she gains a stack, up to 4 stacks. Each stack will amplify the damage dealt by Galbrena's normal. Isn't this just all of her fucking damage? Why are you listing it out all individual? This is just everything. Are there even more attacks in her kit? Each stack amplifies the damage dealt by Galbrena's attacks by 5% for 5.5 seconds. The same type of skill can trigger this effect on the same target once every 5 seconds. So yeah. Basically, the more she attacks a target, the more damage the target takes from her. And this is also the other thing. Guys, why would her echo skill damage not apply to this? You do realize that echo skill damage is part of these attacks. So let's just stop spreading misinformation that the echo skill part of her attacks wouldn't get the damage bonus when literally that is what is in these attacks over here. So yeah, this will just basically, I think the only attack in her kit that's... No, even Hellstride will trigger it. Yeah, I don't even know. This is literally every single attack in her kit. This is like literally every single attack in her kit that's going to get a damage bonus. Except maybe her manually cast echo skill. I think that's the only one that people are talking about. Like the one that you press Q for in combat. So, yeah, just more damage. Second inherent skill, Sin Feaster. Casting the basic attack stage 4, basic attack stage 5 while enhanced, heavy attack, Volley of Death stage 3, and heavy attack Flamewing Verdict stage 3 is going to recover 10 points of stamina. So, could potentially be an amazing solo character for some individuals because you should have a pretty consistent uptime, especially because dodge counters advance you into your basic attack chain. You should be able to theoretically, right, have almost infinite stamina if you're consistently perfectly dodging, consistently using dodge counters, doing all of that. But I'm just going to be honest, in actual gameplay, this sounds fucking useless. Yeah, in actual regular gameplay, this actually doesn't even seem like real, because I don't remember the last time I've ran out of stamina in like TOA or Whimpering Waste, like playing characters that use a lot of stamina or like heavy attacks baseline in their kit. So yeah, I would say this is balanced out by the fact that like this almost seems like her actual, this to me, Burning Drive, this effect over here that gives her a 20% attack bonus, this to me seems like her actual inherent skill. It's just like built into her Forte circuit for some reason. So I wouldn't view her lack of meaningful second inherent as that big of a deal, because you look at this, it's just a 20% attack bonus after you attack anything, right? It's also tacked on top of all of her other effects. This to me is enough as an inherent skill on its own. All right, so now that we've done this whole like kit overview, let's do a little bit of a talk. Let's have a bit of a conversation, right, about what I think about her kit as a whole. I think that she's going to have a lot of degrees of flexibility on the roster, right? I think that she's still going to be fine in Mono Fusion, even though there's not any real dedicated heavy attack buffers unless you want to go sustainless and run Mortify. But I also think that her performance with Mortify, or right? These characters that have these built-in heavy attack damage amplification, it might not be as good as you're potentially thinking. And the reason for that is quite simple. She's got a lot of attacks that are considered heavy attack damage, but she's also got a lot of attacks that are considered echo skill damage, right? The ending chains of her basic attack chain, they're like all considered echo skill. And typically when it comes to like any basic attack chain in the game, the last attack is typically the one that deals the most damage in the attack chain. So I would imagine that her split of actual damage pieces could be closer to like 50-50 or maybe even like 40-60, right? Depending on what her motion values actually are. And so I would just view it this way. This is going to be a character that is like heavily dependent on what her actual multipliers are. Because, well, if all of her good multiplier abilities are the ones that happen to deal echo skill damage, then, well, it's not really going to be that beneficial to have heavy attack. But on the flip side, if it's way more balanced out, right? And heavy attack is actually a super beneficial role, then you're probably going to have a pretty good time. However, another thing to keep in mind, though, is the fact that she literally only has 2 damage types in her kit. I did not see a single attack that deals basic attack damage, aside from the Hellstride dodge, which doesn't even benefit from damage bonuses, so it doesn't count, and echo skill damage. Every single attack in this kit is either heavy attack or echo skill damage. And what that basically means is that she's also going to be one of the more picky characters in the game when it comes to echo substats, right? Because any liberation damage roll is dead. This is the type of echo that you want on her. I know this is a pretty disgusting roll. Like, this is probably the type of echo that you want on her with, like, attack replaced with heavy attack. But pretty much all other stats are going to effectively be useless, right? Resonance liberation damage, useless. Resonance skill damage, useless. Basic attack damage, also useless. I don't have that as a roll. My rolls are too good on this set. But you can get the message that I'm saying. She is, in my opinion, potentially not necessarily at a Brant level of investment because the guy just needs ER so much. But there's a lot of, well, very specific roles that you want on Brant, like basic attack damage, ER, all of that. And I feel like Galbrena is going to be a similar way because she literally doesn't deal liberation, basic, or skill damage, which is a bit rough. So, yeah, I would just say there's definitely a lot of interesting tidbits when it comes to her kit. I think it is pretty unique design with what Kuro's doing, but I still think the point remains over here that I've already talked about before. And that's going to be the dynamic of, well, how echo skill damage actually works in the game. It's pretty clear by now there's not a lot of sources. And one thing that I'm particularly a little bit concerned about potentially is the fact that her weapon is basically a clone of Frolova's, right? And when it comes to Frolova's weapon, there's not a lot of other great alternatives because echo skill damage amplification is built into Frolova's weapon, right? And it's also built into Galbrena's. And there's not really a lot of other echo skill damage sources in the game. And so the end result is that these weapons end up feeling like they're a lot more necessary than other ones. But I would dare say, ladies and gentlemen, we just gotta wait and see how she performs on Static Mist. Because the end result might actually be, well, the performance is a little bit overhyped. Just like how when Frolova's on her weapon or on String Master, people were saying, oh, there's a 47% difference between the performance. And then in actual practice, the clear times are like 3 to 4 seconds apart using String Master versus Frolova's own signature. So that's my take. You just gotta wait and see to see how she works on Static Mist, because chances are she might just be perfectly fine. She just might be perfectly fine with the free-to-play option because Static Mist's base stats are so good. So, yeah, I would just say overall, this is one of, like, the biggest sort of, like, wait-and-see characters that I've personally seen on the roster, because she does have so many potential lineups that I think are going to work out well, right? The whole Mono Fusion thing. We got the whole, like, Shorekeeper Mortifi thing. We've also got even a potential Frolova synergy herself, because Frolova also buffs heavy attack damage. That's a bonus that she has built into her kit. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of potential lineups out there, but we just got to wait and see how the numbers are all breaking down, and just how intriguing her gameplay is actually going to be. So, yeah, that'll be that for this one, ladies and gentlemen. We will also be covering her weapon, as well, a bit more in depth, and talking about some of the alternatives over there. So be on the lookout for that one. Let me know what you all thought about this breakdown, this overview, some of the thoughts we shared. Peace out. Alrighty, let me go get that ready for the editorial, and then we'll get on into her weapon. Then we'll get on into her weapon. Okay. Alrighty. Alrighty. Damn, that was... I actually thought that one was going to be way shorter. That ended up being like a fucking 50-minute kit overview. I didn't even realize it was that long. All right. Alrighty. Galbrena demo plus kit. Cool. All right. Let's get ourselves ready for this bad boy. Lux and Umbra. I will say, though, these weapons look fucking good, brother. These weapons look incredibly damn good.
Kuro Games has outdone themselves with this one.
Turbo low pull value, though. Yeah. Yeah, it's not the highest. I remember people were going around trying to tell me that Frolova's weapon was like an incredible general value one. They were like, hey, look at this one set of calcs. Look, Frolova's weapon is actually better than Stringmaster. And I was like, in what fucking universe is Frolova's weapon better than Stringmaster? Like, are we actually on crack? They're like, oh yeah, the 8% defense ignore is actually significant. It's like, oh brother, like surely we can recognize how little damage some sub DPSs actually deal, right? It's like, bro, I can't believe there were people trying to peddle Frolova's fucking weapon. Okay, let me go get this sent out. Can we get this for afternoon today, please? All right. Alrighty. 24% amp is pretty good, but it's also so the thing is 24% amp is like good, but it's also like potentially not that good. Like that's the thing. It's like you need to see like what her damage split actually is first. And you can also, like, dilute damage amplification, like, a lot. Like, there's a certain point where you dilute it a little bit too much. To the point where a damage bonus could potentially be better. So, that's the kind of, like, complicated part. Especially with a buffer like Yuno in the game that just comes in with 50% amp. Yeah. All right. All right. You know what? I just finished my coffee, so let me go take a piss real fast so I don't gotta do it in the weapon overview. And let's get back to this. Okay. All right. So, one of the reasons why I decided not to play music is because the last time I fucking did, it took me like a whole minute for the chat to stop spamming. Oh, there are consequences for your actions. Oh no, who could have thought? Who could have thought that would be the case? Oh, there are consequences for your actions. All right. Let's get right on into it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, Kuro Games has come out with a lot of news regarding Galbrena lately in the past 12 hours. And of course, we've got to go ahead and we've already covered her kit. We've got to cover her weapon as well. Because one thing when it comes to Wuthering Waves is that with the weapon banner guaranteed and, you know, at the relatively steep cost of around 70 to 75 pulls, you want to make sure that you're spending on something that might be usable on other characters, that's relatively high value, that you're not really going to regret. So we're going to go ahead, make sure that we take a look at things like all of its potential users, how good it actually is on Galbrena herself as a signature, and of course, all of the nuances when it comes to using its weapon effect, how you're going to level it, so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's go ahead, let's get right on into it. And here's our break for the sponsor. Now we're good. All right. So, first things first, when it comes to the weapon, we're going to have to take a look at what the name actually is. They're going to be called Lux and Umbra. If you're familiar with Devil May Cry, the franchise, this might remind you of another set of pistols. This might remind you of another set of pistols used by a certain main character. So that's going to be the breakdown over here. Let's take a look at, from Darkness, she sees, I don't really care about that shit. Let's go ahead and take a look at the base stats. And I think base stats are something very, very important when it comes to weapons. And I always make sure to do a bit of a deep dive, a bit of a discussion on what these base stats actually entail. So we're going to have a base attack of around 587 and a crit damage main stat of about 48.6. This is, without a doubt, one of the more standard weapons that we've ever had in the history of Wuthering Waves. It's pretty similar to, well, you look at signatures like Frolova's. You also look at signatures like, what's it called? Where is she over here? You got Zhang Liao's. You've also got Camelia's. Pretty much the same sort of line. And the thing is, she's going to have that higher base attack of 587. That means anything that scales off of attack, right? Think your percentage damage, think your percentage attack bonuses, the things that you're going to get from the weapon itself, the things that you're going to get from, you know, things like your echoes, where you get 18% over here, or you get a 7.9% over here, or things like Sonata sets like Rejuvenating Glow. Anything that's a percentage attack boost in the game is going to work off of the base attack that the weapon is providing for your character. And then when you look in the stat menu, that base attack is also going to show up here as well. And so that's something important to keep in mind. That means that she's going to be a bit of a better scaler for attack than characters that are using maybe other different types of weapons, like, let's just say, Yunos. Because this thing, on the other hand, has a much lower base attack, about 87 less, but a higher critical stat in return. And the best comparison that we can make in the pistol category that also has critical damage is, of course, Carlotta's. And so we got 572 over here versus 587, 48.6. So if you're using her on this, you're probably going to have way lower critical stats overall. So that's just something to keep in mind. And the last thing that I'll mention over here is which type of critical stat is actually being shown. I think critical damage is actually slightly worse than having critical rate. And the reason for that is quite simple. When you use a critical damage weapon, typically you're going to be using a critical rate forecast. And the kind of like unfortunate part about this situation, and I think Lupa is the best example to show over here, is the fact that a critical rate forecast, it's only got about 22%, while a weapon would have 24.3%. Similarly, a crit damage forecast has 44% crit. And the thing is, I would prefer to have an additional 2 to 3% crit rate over an additional 6 to 8% critical damage, because you can't deal critical damage unless you crit in the first place. And it could potentially be a little bit hard to balance those critical ratios, because one thing Galbrena doesn't have is any like built-in critical boosts in her actual kit itself. I'm not talking about like the skill tree, I'm talking about like her abilities. She doesn't really have anything over there. So maybe a Shorekeeper is something to keep in mind to balance all this out. So with this part out of the way, and we talked about the base stats, we talked about the impact that that's all going to have, let's start talking a little bit more about her weapon skill. And this one is going to be called To Fire, She Returns. And I think I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit to make sure I'm not blocking anything over here. So, the first part of this weapon effect is, and we're going to be reading it at Sensitization Rank 1, this attack is going to be increased by 12%. And upon dealing Echo Skill damage, she's going to gain 24% heavy attack damage amplification for 6 seconds. And upon dealing heavy attack damage, she's going to gain 24% Echo Skill damage amplification for 6 seconds. So let's just take this a little bit piece by piece over here. A 12% attack boost is pretty typical for newer weapons nowadays. Older weapons used to have something like I'm just going to be honest here, older weapons used to be a little bit stronger when it came to the attribute damage effects they had. Because instead of 12% attack, they would have 12% attribute damage bonus, but typically a weaker weapon effect to balance it out. And so this is basically like having all 4 damage type rolls. Liberation. This is like having Liberation, Resonant Skill, Basic Attack, and Heavy Attack all at the same time. While Attack, that's just something you can roll by itself. So that's just something to keep in mind. This is typically seen on more niche effects that are stronger on the character itself. So a bit of a balancing lever. So let's take the next piece now. Upon dealing Echo Skill damage, gain 24% Heavy Attack damage amplification. And this is where stuff gets a little bit interesting, because there's very few weapons in the game that actually have amplification built into their effect. Zhang Liao's weapon is a good example to show, because most weapons are typically consisting of something like this. They give a damage bonus. And one thing we know for certain when it comes to amplification versus damage bonuses is that amplification tends to actually be a way bigger boost to your overall damage profile, right? Because that amplification is actually applied after all of the other calculations are done. And so damage bonus is actually built into the calculation that Amplify proceeds to multiply on top of. And that's why Amplify tends to be a lot stronger. And so the situation kind of is, this is hypothetically one of the strongest weapon effects in the game, assuming that our multipliers are high enough and our baseline damage is high enough, right, to actually have something to greatly amplify. And the thing actually is, well, this means it's kind of a specific weapon, right? Because I don't think that there's a lot of pistol users in the game that even deal heavy attack damage. And I don't think there's a lot of pistol users in the game that deal a lot of echo skill damage. Galbrena is a character that does both, but she's kind of like one of the only ones in the game that actually has these damage types. And so it's kind of like the end result is that, well, we'll talk about it later. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of actual users for this weapon other than her. But maybe there will be some use cases that come out. So the last part of the weapon effect is damage amplification on each attack is capped at 24%. I'm not particularly sure what that means particularly. Maybe she has I don't think she has any attacks that count as both heavy attack and echo skill at the same time, but maybe this is just a line in there in case there's an attack in there that actually has that sort of mechanic going on. Maybe it's a future-proofing thing. Maybe it's a future-proofing thing because Galbrena just doesn't have any of those attacks that are considered both damage types. So, yeah, while both effects are active, that means that the user has done a heavy attack and the user has also used an echo skill. Their attacks are going to start ignoring 8% of the target's defense. And this is one thing I just want to talk about over here. 8% of the target's defense is very little. I think a lot of people tend to heavily overstate how strong an 8% damage or 8% defense ignore actually is. It quite literally is sometimes almost completely unnoticeable when it comes to the actual damage that you're dealing. And so I would just say a lot of people have talked about how strong Frolova's weapon is because of this, how strong Zadi's weapon is because of this. These aren't real. This effect over here really isn't that insane. And so once again, I would say that this weapon is overly specific. Let's talk about how good it is on Galbrena, considering that. So one thing that I didn't actually mention before that I'll go ahead and mention now is I'll have to go to the actual Wuthering Waves website to show you guys. But that's going to be the Sonata set, right? That's going to be accompanying the release of this character. And so if we just go ahead, we take a look over here at the version preview, we'll be able to see exactly what the new Galbrena set actually... I know it's in here. Here we go. Flame Wing Shadow. So this is the Sonata set that Galbrena is going to be able to use. Dealing echo skill damage increases heavy attack crit rate by 20%. And dealing heavy attack damage increases echo skill crit rate by 20%. And while both are active, gain a 60% fusion damage bonus. So that is essentially exactly the same sort of way that her weapon is going to be working, right? You want to switch between heavy attacks and echo skill attacks to trigger both effects relatively quickly, and then you'll be able to gain a nice fusion damage bonus on top of it. This set is pretty cracked. It's pretty broken, right? And you're beginning to see right now, right? Well, if you're going to want to make the full use of this weapon's crit damage main stat, you're going to want to make sure to farm this set as well. So all those trade-offs that I talked about before, right? Well, that's if you aren't using the set that's tailor-made for her. And I think this is kind of a testament to the amount of power creep that we've had when it comes to Sonata set effects. Guys, if Galbrena ends up dealing more damage than your 1.0 units, and she's on this set, that's not particularly that surprising, right? Because this set is fucking broken. 20% crit, and then 16% fusion damage bonus, and then you add the 2-piece bonus effect of any fusion set, and now you're at 26% fusion damage bonus and 20% crit? Brother, you want to know what the 1.x sets look like? I'll show you what a 1.x set looks like. Hey guys, which one's better? Hey, let me know which one's better, boys. 40% fusion damage or 26% fusion damage and 20% crit. I don't know which one's better, guys. Which one seems to be stronger to you? I think I know which one is. And that's kind of the thing, right? There's not a lot of weaknesses that I can see with this weapon effect, this weapon effect, this Sonata effect, and then the base stats. because that's just a lot. That's a lot of stats that you're going to have ready to go over here. You're going to have built-in amplification. You're also going to have a shit ton of crit damage bonus over here. And then you're also going to have a nice whopping critical damage main stat on top of all of it to really round out the damage portfolio. So this pistol is going to be pretty damn good with her. And like I said before, amplification is added on top of, it's a multiplier on top of all of these previous damage boosts that are going to be available. And, well, the end result is that it's going to work really well on her because she's going to have permanent uptime on these effects. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of other characters that are going to be able to utilize it that well. The last thing that I'll mention when it comes to Galbrena's set is the fact that, well, once again, she's going to have the Chorosaurus Echo available too. And that's going to be a nice, another 12% fusion damage bonus on top of all the other effects that we talked about and 20% Echo skill damage bonus too. So, yeah. Kind of a loaded breakdown. And hopefully, like I said before, we've recognized that Galbrena, when you just look at her normal attack chain, I think that'll be the easiest way for us to just break down the fact that she's easily able to activate both effects. This is just her normal attack chain. The first 3 hits of it are considered heavy attack damage, and the 4th hit of her basic attack chain is considered echo skill damage. So to effectively activate both her Sonata set and her weapon, she needs to deal 1 basic attack chain. And that will trigger both set effects immediately. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to this weapon. And that's going to be its other users. I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't think that there's a single character on the roster that actually wants this thing. Because chances are, if you're a character on the roster that wanted that thing, chances you could just use, let me just find my Mortefi. You could just use Static Mist. Because this gives a nice ER substat. Sure, its weapon effect might not really be good on a DPS because it's just buffing the next character, but its base stats alone are incredibly strong. You know, the same exact best-in-class attack over here of 587, and then a very good crit rate main stat as well, and then even an ER boosting effect that can be good for some DPSs because, well, they need energy to cast their Liberation. And Galbrena's Liberation, ladies and gentlemen, is very strong and also very important for her kit. There's just not a lot of other characters that want any of these stats because there are no pistol users in the game that deal heavy attack damage, except for one of them. And that one pistol user that deals heavy attack damage is Chikona. And yes, Chikona does end up using her Echo skill in her rotation. You could cast it closer to the start. You could just use her Echo skill as you're like firing off, right? The quadruple downbeat attack, because this is a heavy attack. But quadruple downbeat is like, it's a 600% motion value attack with like a 30% built-in damage bonus. And it's like, yeah, you might be able to get some decent damage out of this. But chances are, because Chikona is one of the most ER-reliant characters in the game, you need to cast her Liberation every rotation. If you're looking for a budget option, you're probably just going to use Static Mist because it gives you 20% ER and makes managing her ER way easier, right? And then the end result is like, okay, I just traded about 40k damage on my rotation, about 70k damage on my rotation, maybe 100k, right? If we're being really ambitious over here, for less ER and like, you know, crazier substats I need to build. And so the end result is that there's just not really any use cases for this thing on the roster outside from Galbrena, because anybody that you would consider using this on, just ask yourself the question, would Static Mist be better? And usually the answer is just going to be yes, because the only user is Chikona. Everybody else on the roster doesn't deal heavy attack damage. Just look at who we have for pistol users. And once again, there's not a lot of them. Carlotta deals resident skill damage. Who else? Mortefi deals liberation damage. Alto deals no damage. And Chisha is basic and liberation and skill. Basically, everything except heavy is Shisha. So the end result, guys, is that, once again, there's not even any other users on the roster for this. And so if you're thinking about it from the perspective of, oh, this weapon might be, might have some value for somebody else, you're going to have to look forward to a future unit. You're going to have to look forward to a future unit, and you're basically going to be on the copium, right? That this weapon is eventually going to do something. It's happened once before, right? It's definitely happened once before when we had Tragic Comedy, Rosia's weapon, right? Where we looked at this and then we were like, how in God's name is somebody going to benefit from, after using a basic attack, increasing heavy attack damage bonus? We all thought that this was going to be the most specific weapon ever. And then Zani happened to release, who, well, literally actually does that. Deals basic attacks that end up dealing heavy attack damage. And while, yes, Zani's signature is better on her than Rosia's is entirely usable. So it could just be a similar situation like this in the future where there's another pistol attack, user with an echo skill that they can build into their rotations to actually gain benefit out of this. But once again, that is possible. It's not confirmed that it's going to happen, and there's a relatively decent likelihood that it could maybe never happen, or you'd have to wait like 10 versions for it. So I would just say, once again, just to be entirely honest, I don't think this weapon is going to have a lot of use cases on the roster outside of Galbrena and maybe some crackpot Chakota build. But at that point, you should just get Chakota's signature if you're even willing to go that far and stop using Static Mist. That's pretty much it. So don't get too excited about this one and all the other potential users that it would have. And the worst part about all of this is probably the fact that if you are looking for like a general 5-star pistol weapon outside of Static Mist, you'd probably just want to pull Carlotta's anyways. Because chances are somebody does deal resonant skill damage, and you have like a way bigger critical damage bonus to work with over here, which can be just like a little bit exciting, right? 72%, that's a very like enticing looking number for people to use. Much more exciting than 48.6. So yeah, that's just, you even have like a better option over here when it comes to other limited 5-stars. So with that in mind, we've talked about the other users. There aren't really any. Let's start getting into the alternatives, and specifically the alternatives for Galbrena if you don't want to pull this signature. The first one is pretty simple, right? We talked about it already. Static Mist already has some of the best base stats in the game. Theoretically, it gives 3 things that every DPS character in the game, outside of Frolova, who doesn't have energy, it gives 3 stats that people want. You got crit rate, high base attack, and then ER. Galbrena will need all of these, because one thing is very clear from Galbrena's profile reveal. You take a look at her Resonance Liberation, and you're like, oh my gosh. You gain an 85% damage multiplier increase on like 17 different attacks. So you kind of want to make sure you have this available in almost every single rotation. But the unfortunate flip side of this is kind of simple. When it comes to Galbrena's signature set, this gives crit rate, right? You're going to have 20% crit rate right here. You combine that with 24.3% crit rate on the weapon, and you're going to have like 43 point something percent crit rate with, you're going to be at basically 50% crit rate with absolutely no actual echo investment. And so chances are you might not ever actually reach Galbrena's like full damage potential, which, I mean, you're not using your signature, but you're kind of gonna likely get close to overcapping on crit rate. You might be close to like 80, 90%, assuming you just get double crit on every piece. And if that's the situation that you're sort of in with Static Mist, then that might also be a situation, right, where you want to use like a crit damage weapon instead to have something like that, to have more crit damage in the build. However, that also means that she's going to be super, incredibly easy to build when you're on Static Mist. Just use a crit damage forecast. Yes, your ceiling's going to be lower, but I'm pretty sure you'll still have everything you need to get the character going. And if your static miss is at higher ranks like mine, I think 19.2% ER would just be perfectly fine for the character as a whole, because most DPSs only need 120. Now, let's talk about some of the other options that are available. Woodland Aria, which is... Okay, might as well just go over to Chacona. We can just go over to the users themselves. I mean, it's not like the worst thing ever, because it also has really good base stats. But like I said before, if you were worrying about overcapping on crit with Static Mist, you will definitely overcap on crit with this thing. However, it's, you know, it doesn't have the ER, but it still has a 12% attack bonus, but the rest of its effect is a little bit suspect on Galbrena because, yeah, she can't inflict arrow erosion or do any of this shit. So, yeah, none of the other effects are going to apply. But, I mean, it's not the worst thing ever. It still has decent base stats, especially that 36% crit. And the last weapon that, of course, we can look at in the 5-star category is, again, the one I've shown before, the Last Dance. And this one is a little bit simple. Galbrena deals no resident skill damage. She actually deals no basic attack damage. She actually deals no liberation damage. It's all heavy. And so, because of that, this is literally just a stat stick. It's basically the opposite version of Chakota's stat stick, where you get critical damage instead. But similarly, right, this could actually be the best overall choice. That could be the best overall choice if you're not using Galbrena's signature, because like I mentioned before, she's got that built-in crit rate on her Echo set. And so you can go ahead and have, right, a pretty devilish crit ratio, in my opinion, if you're utilizing this thing. That's something to keep in mind. Now, let's go ahead and start talking about some of the 4-star options that are going to be available for Galbrena. And this is where we're going to be using the weapon gallery. Very glad that Kuro Games decided to add this to the game. Well done, developers. And let's just be real here. There's a couple of options she can use. The first one basically is the best, and that's going to be the new Battle Pass weapon, Oath of Tidehunters from Solar Flame. Dealing basic or heavy attack damage increases attack by 2.2% and grants a 2.2% heavy attack damage bonus for 7 seconds, stacking up to 4 times. This is pretty much in line with Galbrena's main damage type of heavy attack, but you're going to notice that we don't have any Echo skill damage boosts in here. And the thing is, Echo skill damage is really, really, really rare on the roster. You can only get it from a couple of different set effects, a couple of different buffs, and this weapon doesn't have it. All it has is the heavy attack damage boost, but Galbrena does have a decent number of heavy attack attacks in her kit. Everything else is like, I don't even think she would be on a team with negative statuses, so this one is just mainly an attack stat stick. It's decent, though. This thing's also an attack stat stick. And the next other BP weapon that you have is pretty dog shit because it boosts resonant skill damage, which she deals none of. Nova Burst is just, I guess theoretically, yeah, she does do dashes and dodges and stuff, so maybe if you're really desperate. But like I said, there's really no reason to explore any of these 4-star options when in Wuthering Waves, it is so accessible to get standard 5 stars. And if you're ever at the point where you're even considering any of these options, just ask yourself why you're not using a Static Mist when you can just go into the Convene menu, just go down here, and then, like, select Static Mist, and then just guarantee that you can pull for it with the massive number of standard pulls you get across versions. Everybody at this point in the game, unless you're literally, like, a new player, you should have a copy of Emerald of Genesis and Static Mist. If you don't, you're griefing. Because you get the UL-45 weapon box, all of that, and then you definitely get enough standard pulls in the gameplay to pull the other weapon. So if you don't have a copy of either of these, I don't really know what you're doing. I legitimately think you're actually just griefing yourself. So don't bother with the standard 4-star or the 4-star gun options. Just pull this thing because it's really just that damn good. It's the second best standard weapon, potentially the actual best standard weapon that's available on the banner. And you can choose. Maybe we'll get lucky over here. It would have been wild if we got one, but you can kind of see, right? You get a lot of standard pulls. So, yeah. That'll be the alternatives. And now let's talk about like the final tidbit over here. And this is going to be a little bit more of like a critique piece for me when it comes to this weapon. It really reminds me of Frolova's weapon. Right? It really reminds me of Frolova's weapon. But one thing that's clear is that this is kind of like Frolova's weapon, but slightly worse. Where Frolova, right, has the built-in echo skill damage bonus, or she has a resonant skill damage bonus and an echo skill damage amplification, while Galbrena just has 24% heavy attack damage amp and then 24% echo skill damage amplification. I'm just kind of the viewpoint that I don't really like how rare this echo skill damage effect actually is. It is, you know, it's a very specific sort of damage type that only shows up in a couple of kits. And without a lot of ways to find boosts for it outside of either other specific echo sets that only other characters can activate, it does feel like this stat is too rare, right? And with weapons being one of the main sources of the stats and then not really being able to get it in a lot of other places, it can feel a bit, well, unfair how rare the stats actually are. And it is, you know, without a doubt, yes, you can access a fair amount of it in the Sonata sets. That's actually there. But I think it's more so the amplification piece that's a bit upsetting, right? Not necessarily like, if this was like a 25% echo skill damage bonus or a 48% echo skill damage bonus, it wouldn't be that bad. But I think the fact that this one is amplification, which is the rarest stat of them all, while this one's also amplification, once again, the rarest stat of them all, I do think it can end up leaving a bit of a bitter taste in the player's mouth because there's no other way in the game to acquire those bonuses. There's no other source of echo skill damage amplification other than these two weapons. So I just really think that there needs to be a lot more availability of that stat in particular, and it shouldn't necessarily be locked off behind premium weapons. Because, well, it, you know, again, it's a weapon. It's not really a character. If it was locked behind a character, sure, right? That makes a little bit more sense. But a weapon, hopefully you guys can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's just going to be my overview of Galbrena's weapon, what it's worth. I think we ran through a lot of, like, the different specifics with this one. And I would just say, overall, this isn't something that you're going to want to pull unless you really like Galbrena, you really like her kit, because you can just always use her on Static Mist. And second, it's got basically virtually no other users on the roster because everyone else would just use Static Mist instead. So, yeah, I do think it's overall a little bit questionable design, but we'll just have to see what all the calculations, all the stuff like that is going to work out. Because one thing is for certain, right? They took a pretty big step forward in version 2.6 with the release of Augusta and Yuno, who have some of the most non-specific weapons in the game, or non-specific weapon alternatives in the game with specific weapons. I don't necessarily think that Galbrena's in the same spot because of what I said before when it comes to those echo skills, right? There's no like Zhang Liao or Jian signature that can be used over here. And that is going to feel a lot more selective. Last thing that we're going to wrap up with is just the upgrade mats. These are literally rings from Exiles, and then the same exact upgrade mat we've had since 1.0. So, if you don't have these, I don't know what you're doing. So yeah, that'll be that for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you all thought about this breakdown of this coverage. And peace. All right. That's that one. All right. Okay. Cool. SDK 500 super chat from Clay. You've been talking for 2 hours. Drink some water. Oh, that's actually a good idea. That's actually a good play. Yeah. It has been a monumental yapping day. It has been a monumental yapping day. Appreciate it, brother, man. Appreciate it, Clay. You doing another high production guide video for Galbrena like you did with Yuno? We do it for every single character that releases in the game. We do a high value production guide. So yeah, don't worry. There will be one coming up for your favorite Demon Slayer very soon. I think. I hope. Alrighty. Can't wait for the Yasuo gun. I can't wait to take a look at Chuyan's kit when 2.7 drops. Yeah, I can't wait to take a look at that bad boy. You mean the Discord Slayer? Okay, alright. Alright, guys. So that should be that for this one. Genya also uses a gun and has the yeah, I think we already talked about it from our lore reveal. Galbrena's like a combo of Demon Slayer, Devil May Cry, and The Witcher, all in one unit. If it's not clear, like if the inspirations from all three of those franchises like isn't clear, it's just I feel like it's so on the nose. It has to be obvious, right? She has, like, demon hypostasis. She got, like, devil trigger. She has, like, the whole, like, killing monsters Discord Slayer. Like, let's just be real. Bayonetta, it doesn't feel that Bayonetta to me, to be honest. How about Bayonetta? I think you guys are conflating woman with guns to Bayonetta. Like, isn't Bayonetta a witch? Isn't Bayonetta a witch? Okay, nobody's answering my question, so yes, she is a witch. Yes, like, I just asked if she's a witch, and everyone's dodging the question. So, okay, so she's a witch. Where in Galbrena's lore do you see anything about magic and witches? She got the gunslinger vibe. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is when I consider the gunsling vibe, I'm thinking of Dante from Devil May Cry. That's my take. I'm thinking about Dante from Devil May Cry when I think about her pistol moveset. Like, I get that she uses guns and shit. Dante barely uses his guns in game. They're linking Bayonetta because of the breakdance moves. Okay. What even is this? This is the thing. I've seen Bayonetta, right? I've seen Bayonetta gameplay, and I can understand the point where you guys are coming from, but it's just more so the fact that like Bayonetta is way more like acrobatic. She's like she does way more like wild shit. She's like doing like splits and shit and like bending over like backwards and shit like that. I don't view like Galbrena's moveset as nearly as like I mean, she pole dancing while she's literally pole dancing while firing guns. Galbrena also so this is what so you guys are taking this animation over here. Let me go find it. Oh, right over here. Hey guys, look. Hey guys, she did the bend. Hey, look at that shit. That's hey. Look. She did the little thing. Is that the main one? Saints ignoring the guns on the feet. So that's the main thing is the guns on the feet. Okay. I mean, if you guys, hey, if that's the approach that you guys want to go with, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, I view Bayonetta's moveset as, like, way more, like, what's it called? I view Bayonetta's moveset to be, like, way more acrobatic. That's my take. I don't think she moves around, like, that much, to be real. That's just, again, this is my personal opinion. If you don't agree with it, I don't personally care that much because it's like a character's aesthetic design. I don't think it's bad. I don't view it as similar as you might. If that offends you, that's also perfectly fine, but I'm going to call you a bit of a weirdo at the same time. All right. I heard there was a video lately that is causing a little bit of drama. Yeah, I heard there's a video that's causing a little bit of drama in the community.
You know,
The I win to lose damage calculation
Hello?
tier list video. Yeah. So you want to know what the main takeaway of this one is, ladies and gentlemen? Y'all ready for this? I got it for you. Where's the fucking list? Gian is the 4th best team in the game, boys. Oh, yes, sir. Gian is the 4th best team in the game. Yep. The 4th best team in the game, ladies and gentlemen. I went to lose literally clarified that Gian is being wheelchaired. Wheelchaired is not the right terminology to use. You want to know why? Because any character in the game without a sub DPS and without a support ends up not dealing that much damage. Yuno carries the team? No, you want to know what carries the team? The fact that Yuno and Gian are both arrow, and you have Chikona in the team who can buff all arrow damage. And so, the team's performance is a relative combination of all 3 characters synergizing perfectly together. That is the true breakdown of the team, is all three characters synergizing perfect together. Think about it this way. In Mono Fusion, do you say any of these characters are getting wheelchaired? Do you say any character in the Mono Fusion team is being wheelchaired? Oh, Chang Li? But they all deal 33% of the damage on the team. They all deal around 30-something, 20 to 30% of the team's damage, all three of them. No, they just buff each other perfectly. Oh, okay, so no team in the Mono Fusion team wheelchairs each other. They just buff each other well. But then this team is suddenly somebody's getting wheelchaired. Wheelchair equals synergy. Who does Jian buff? Oh, okay. Just make sure. Okay, so let me just show you guys how uneducated you are on how this game works. Did you know that Jian's outro skill actually only triggers, and actually it does a coordinated attack when the incoming Resonator's heavy attack hits a target? You want to know who uses heavy attacks on this team and who receives Jian's outro skill? It's actually Chacona. And so Chacona literally deals a heavy attack in a rotation, and then we'll activate this. Yeah, you guys probably didn't know the incoming recipient had to use a heavy attack, right? You guys probably did not know that this is how Jian's outro skill works. I know you all didn't know that this was how it worked. The duration is short ass. If you're taking longer than 8 seconds to do your Chacona rotation, you're actually griefing. Yeah, the character when she intro skills in, she takes about 5 seconds to get a rotation off. Probably shorter if you like know what to do. So yeah, that's just again, it's just another situation. Oh, unfortunately, you guys didn't know that one, did you? Yeah. Yeah, you didn't know that one, did you, boys? That's only 1% of the team's DPS. Does it need to do more if the team's already performing that well? How come these Theory Crafter CCs have like 10k differences in their calcs? We can dive into why the calcs are different over here. Yeah, we can dive into what's different over here. Anyways, Jian is ass without Chacona. His video also immediately dispels Maggie's Zani big power creep over Carlotta calcs. Well, that's the thing. Because, guys, all you need to do is look at footage of either Captain Cabinets or Ethan using the Zani team, and you'll be like, oh, they're making this team look like a tier 5 team. And that's just what it looks like in the hands of the average player. They make that team look like shit. They make that team look really bad. I'm just gonna be I think it took them both multiple days to clear Hazard Tower floor. Like Hazard Tower 4. Like multiple days. Bro is lying? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so, man. And this is the thing, right? This might be just like a fun little... This might be like a fun little thing to take a look at over here. We might have like a follow-up video on this. I've literally actually gone ahead and tested out some clears in the Hazard Tower with all these different teams. And it's like actually a little bit surprising what the results are. Let me just see if I can do like a bit of a demo run right now. I don't get what's so hard about the Zani team. Phoebe has one of the most annoying kits to use in the game. She's got a lot of just very, very annoying to use animations. I think if you've played Zani Phoebe enough, you actually despise Phoebe. I'm not even joking. Most people probably hate the character, like gameplay-wise. Like, her kit just feels so clunky sometimes. I actually despise it. Ooh, what's that bonus?
Thanks for watching.
And that's how fast your Chakota rotation is, ladies and gentlemen. You see that shit over there? How you not getting that immediately, bro?
Taste my resolve. Entertain me. Foe, be my prey. Future.
You're wide open. Fear no more.
Don't you worry.
Thanks for watching.
Oh, no, it missed!
The trio of destiny. I'll indulge you. I am the moon. Answer my call. Praise me. Faith in my mark. Ability
Ready for battle.
overturn.
Unstoppable.
Why did that feel like so delayed, bro?
Don't you worry. Don't you
Thanks for watching.
worry.
Bro, the time... I don't even know where my ER went. My ER actually disappeared off a fucking cliff.
The show begins. Now watch closely. Present your. The moon is full. Face
How much crit rate does she have? She has like 80% crit rate. I'm not even lying.
face
You're wide open. Fear no more.
revealed.
She has like 80% crit rate. Yeah, you want to see how high her crit rate actually is?
While the moon cycles.
Yeah, she got like 83%.
Remain the anchor.
She got like 83% and basically missed every single crit. Yeah, that's a little bit rough, man. That's a little bit rough there, brother. Yeah. Yeah. So, this is also the other thing that I think a lot of people don't necessarily recognize when it comes to any comparisons that they're ever going to be running with any of these older characters is you guys got to understand at a baseline that none of these calcs actually matter that much. And the reason for that is pretty simple, right? When it comes to like the actual character strength, and I'll explain why. Every single one of the characters that's 2.x and beyond is using a Sonata set that's way fucking better than anybody else that anybody on the 1.x roster could possibly be using. All you need to do, if you're ever in the state of mind where you feel like you're like, oh yeah, Yuno's a better main DPS than Jian, it's not. It's never going to be the case. And the reason for that is quite simple. Yuno simply has a better Sonata set that she can use. She has a Sonata set that gives her literally 30% attack, 20% crit damage on top of a 10% damage bonus. And so if you're at the point where you're comparing a character who, let's just be honest here, Yuno and Jian sheet-wise is like, they're literally right next to each other. She has a better Sonata set that she's using. And believe me when I say this, if you put your Yuno on a Sierra Gale set, like how Jian uses a Sierra Gale set, her damage would be significantly significantly lower than Gion's. If you were using a Sierra Gale set, like how he's using a Sierra Gale set. Is he using Windward? So this is the thing about Windward Pilgrimage on Gion that people don't recognize. Hey guys, if I'm using Windward Pilgrimage on Gion, what's the passive bonus on my... What passive bonus am I getting? I'm gaining a 12% arrow damage bonus at max. There's literally no better forecast I can use. And that is going ahead and directly competing with the Nightmare Monkey that just gives you 12% heavy attack bonus on top of 12% arrow damage. Okay, but Cartithia? Okay, I love how you guys are like, oh, I'm gonna get Saint with this one. I'm gonna get Saint with this one because I can't fucking read. So, let's just pull you up here, Revert. So, since you've never actually read the Cartithia Echo a single fucking time in your life, let me read it out for you. The Resonator with this Echo equipped in the main slot gains a 10% arrow damage bonus. When Resonator, Arrow, or Cartithia equips this Echo, they gain 10% more. Like, I don't understand why we're at the point where we're using our lack of knowledge to try to get a one-up on me. Guys, I hope you would have recognized by now, you don't know more about the game than me. You definitely fucking don't. And so every single time somebody tries to come in with a, I'm gonna get Saint this time. Oh, he's spreading some misinfo. You end up cooking yourself. Every single fucking time. Every single time. Without fail. And so, let me just reiterate it again. Windward Pilgrimage might on paper look great for Gion, but you are balancing it out with the fact that you are just losing a 12% damage bonus on your 4 slot. Second, yeah, you're probably not really going to be using the active skill effect, and your ER is going to go down the fucking drain as well. Because, well, Gion just summons his monkey, right? And then that helps gain him some ER too. So, that's the problem with Windward Pilgrimage on Gion. He doesn't have a 4-cost Echo that works well on the set. And 4-cost Echo's passive bonuses are pretty damn significant. So, yeah, again, it's literally a Sonata set issue for... Sonata set... Like, this is why I've actually made this take that I'm probably going to make when I react to the video. I would love to see what these numbers look like with the 2.0 characters on 1.x sets. That's what I would like to see. What does the performance of these teams of this damage look like with the 2.x DPSs all on 1.x sets? What does it look like when Cartithia, right, is on Sierra Gale? What does it look like when Augusta's on Void Thunder? What does it look like when Furlova's on Havoc Eclipse? Right? And if that's the case, and Sonata sets alone are enough to make that much of a difference, and let's just be honest here, the 1.x Sonata sets are some of the most, well, general in the game, because all they give is just a flat damage bonus to the attribute. Well, I mean, that's what all the 1.x characters are using. But why would we ever use 1.x units on 2.x characters? I literally just gave the reason for that. So you could see the damage they deal on the 1.x sets and see how big of a difference the 2.x sets make. Because the 1.0 characters cannot use the 2.x sets. Yeah, that is essentially, right? That is essentially why. And so it makes the argument of how much of it is due to the power creep in the kits versus how much of it is due to the fact that there's vast amounts of power creep in the Sonata sets. It's a pretty reasonable baseline, not that hard to understand argument. That's just my take, though. I don't know. What is this? The Alto VA drama simplified? Is this from today? What's the point of reading your bitchy ass customer support messages when it's being sent because you're like offended over nothing? This is like saying, oh my god, like I saw somebody eating ice cream, right? They were eating ice cream on a cone, right? And then they spilled some of the ice cream on the ground. And then I immediately started schizoing out because they were littering. And so I immediately started writing a message to my city council. I also went to the police. I filed a report about this evil child that's littering all over the street. They're spilling ice cream everywhere. Fucking demonic. And then you go ahead, you start advertising how you contacted the police, the city council, even the fucking UN, because this crazy evil child was going around spilling ice cream on the floor during a hot summer day. And then you went ahead, you posted your complaint online, and then somebody says, this is such a retarded reason to even file a police report in the first place. I'm not even going to bother reading it because the read Is that the best analogy ever? That's the best analogy ever, isn't it? Literally what happened? Literally what happened. And so yeah, I'm not gonna read your fucking police report, bro. I don't care if you're offended. I'm not gonna read a police report that was essentially filed because you're schizoing out over random shit. It's really just that simple. Like, I don't even know how me not reading it is something worth complaining about. That's just my take, though. That's just my take, though. And I don't know why there are so many individuals who are, like, so proud of the fact that they got him to private his video. It's like, okay, congratulations. Now he thinks you guys are fucking retarded. And probably doesn't want to interact with you freaks anymore. Congratulations. Yeah, if I was in that situation, I'd probably just delete it too. Because, like, oh, looks like I angered a bunch of fucking dumbasses. Oh. Ah, darn. That's unfortunate. Guess we won't be doing none of that no more. They're like, we got him! Guys, we got him to take down his video! Oh my god, we're so influential! Fucking losers, man. Like, you're such fucking losers, it's unbelievable. Mr. Pokey, F2P, Anomaly, Arbitration, 3-star. Mr. Pokey's free-to-play account is the most pointless, retarded thing I've ever heard. And I'll give you the exact reasons why. Bro literally is just abusing the fact that the game has an immense amount of power creep, and all his free-to-play account does is pull the latest broken fucking unit that auto-wins the game. And so, yes, because Mr. Pokey started his free-to-play account as every single broken fucking unit that auto-wins the game is releasing, he simply pulled all the broken fucking units that auto-win the game. Because he saved up all of his resources from the past 17 story versions of the game and dedicated all of them, not to dog shit units like the fucking Jing Yuans and the Argentis, but he spent all of his pulls on actual broken fucking units because the game has too much power creep. That's basically it. So it's like, hey guys, look what occurs when you have full knowledge via early access servers about what units are going to be fucking broken, and then you ensure that none of your resources are wasted on anything that's garbage. Oh, wait, nobody knew that Firefly was going to be garbage in less than a year. Nobody knew Acheron was going to be garbage in less than a year. Oh, but hindsight is 2020, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, let me just make an account. And we'll talk about how free-to-play friendly Honkai Star Rail is. Believe me when I say this. He is not going to be continuing that account once they decide Casterus is no longer flavor of the month. You know what Mr. Pokey's going to do? He's probably going to make a new free-to-play account for 4.0 because that's when the game's going to have its next meta shift and make Casterus useless. Right? Because they got to release the next new thing in the next new region. So it's just like he's going to make a new free-to-play account because he's going to be in the same spot as every other actual free-to-play at the moment that's a day one, where nobody on their roster actually does anything because that's how the devs have decided to balance the fucking game. So believe me when I say this, he's making another free-to-play account. It's going to happen because he's going to realize, oh, wait, I spent all my resources to make 2 teams, and now all those teams are both useless because the devs decided that they're going to be useless. Because what happens when they decide Casterus is not going to be flavor of the month anymore? He just spent all of his free-to-play pulls on like 2 fucking teams. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a cook situation over here, ladies and gentlemen. That's really how simple it is, and that's why this whole free-to-play account nonsense is some of the most pointless garbage you can possibly fucking imagine. Hey, guys, look what happens when the game power creeps itself like 300% in 2 versions. I just pulled only the units that power creep the game and I could clear. Isn't this game free-to-play friendly? Oh, Jesus Christ, man. All right. Shall we take a look at this I win Toulouse video-y? Sorry, just reaching out to my editors real fast. Okay. All right. Alrighty. Let me go ahead and I'm actually going to pick up some more coffee real fast. Then we'll just actually take a look at this video because I am interested in seeing the line of reasoning over here. Okay, we are all juiced up now. We're all ready to go. Just dilute some of this coffee. It's going to be a little bit hot. Alrighty. Alrighty. Just close a couple of these windows over here. I think we're good on that. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like there's some new drama that's about to brew up in the Wuthering Waves community because apparently I Win to Lose Gaming has calculated all teams for your tier list. And I'm going to be honest over here. I've pre-watched some of the sheets, some of the details, some of the compositions, some of the rankings. And boy, oh boy, it's a little bit loaded. And so what I wanted to do was actually go ahead, take a look at this video, and then we'll probably do some follow-ups where we take a look at the actual sheet itself to, well, preview how these rankings are looking like. Because, well, I'll leave it up. I'll leave it up to I Win to Lose to explain some of the stuff for us. Let's give it a bit of a look.
Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. It's been a while since we've done a Wuthering Waves tier list, so in today's video, we're finally going to revisit this topic and...
I realized the audio was a little bit low. My bad, boys.
Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. It's been a while since we've done a Wuthering Waves tier list, so in today's video, we're finally going to revisit this topic, and this time, I've come armed to the teeth with math. So what is this video going to be based on?
There's a lot of numbers in here.
It is going to be based on a bunch of team calculations that, you know, I went to the boys and I was like, hey, let's make some team calcs for every single featured 5-star characters in Wuthering Waves. So huge shout out to and thanks to Catalyst Online, who did most of these calcs, as well as most of the calcs in most of my videos, as well as to, you know, the people that help him, Low Priority, Sweat Drops, and Pride Win.
So I actually have a direct line with Sweat over here. He's given me his perspective on some of the numbers and some of the calculations and why teams are in certain places. So don't worry, we will be able to speak on his behalf for a good chunk because some of these numbers will probably piss you off. I'm just letting you know.
Now, let's talk a bit about this tier list. As I mentioned, this tier list is focused on 5-star featured resonators. So this is, you know, it's not really going to take into consideration 4-star characters because people tend to get those, you know, for free and stuff. And also, we're not going to be focusing on, for example, the standard banner 5-star characters either. This list is more so going to be focused on which character should you consider pulling for based on, you know, what math that we can base it off of. Summer might be winding down, but Snowbreak can...
All right, well, the Gooner ad placement is a little. I don't want to get potentially you know, demonetized over here. So we'll skip that one for now. But yeah, a W sponsor.
During today's video. Now, the next thing is that these calculations, we're going to include their ideal team as well as a more free-to-play friendly team. For example, looking at Carlotta here, we've got some calcs for her with Judge and Shorekeeper, as well as a 2-cost calc with, for example, Tauchi and Verena instead. And the reality is, with HP values just going up and up in Tower of Adversity, as well as needing 3 fully geared to the teeth endgame teams effectively, as well as kind of like a 4th team to clear out some of the junk. Tower is, you know, not the same walk in the park as it used to be, and we do actually need to consider team DPS a bit more than we used to. So
I think the main thing with the tower right now is that, in my personal opinion, the actual DPS requirements aren't significantly, like, to the point where they're, like, absurdly higher. It's just more so the fact that there are a lot of enemies that are actually extremely diseased in this current TOA reset. There's a lot of enemies that people might have a lot of struggle with in terms of, like, damaging them. But there are some movesets that you can figure out, like the Light Crusher, the Ikes, all of that. But there are other movesets where you literally can't do anything. Like, well, let's just be honest here. I've already got my list of monsters that I think are, like, absolutely some of the worst things ever. I'll just show them. I'll just show them to you guys. So let me talk a little bit about Hazard Floors 3 and 4 and why it feels like HP can be really crazy. It's because of the Rage Against the Statue boss. This guy can essentially, at random, summon a shield, right? They summon a shield. It gets like a tiny little HP bar on the hand, and that just absorbs all the damage that they're taking. A good chunk of it. And the end result is that it feels like its HP can sometimes get close to, like, doubling with how durable its shield is. and sometimes it just doesn't use it. Sometimes it does use it. And on the times where both of them put up their shield, brother, it can make it seem like it has like double the HP that it actually should. And you don't get to decide whether or not it puts up a shield. It's extremely random. Second, the Dragon of Dirge is a boss that you can figure out with, you know, sometimes it'll use its charge and stuff. If you're too far away, you can control distance and actually position for this thing. The Lampilumen Myriad just decides randomly when it wants to teleport to random fucking spots on the map. So it's just an absolute disaster fighting against this thing with certain enemies or certain characters on the roster. I would say those are the ones that are like the biggest issues. Because what the Lampilumen does is it basically becomes unhittable. And when you can't hit something and you have like timers going down across your kit or your liberation or something, then you're not generating energy either. So it becomes a damage issue and then an ER issue as well. So that's just my sort of takeaway on the whole like tower thing. Yes, floors 3 and 4 have more HP, but there are some built-in mechanics on the mobs that make it seem like it has even more HP than it actually does in practical gameplay. So that's my additional disclaimer on top of it over there.
So I figured this was a pretty decent time to give a bit of advice and guidance for this.
Oh, wait, let me go ban somebody from YouTube chat. Go back to the video, Unk. Get off my channel, bro. All right, easy.
Consider team DPS a bit more than we used to. So I figured this was a pretty decent time to give a bit of advice and guidance for this purpose. Now, as mentioned, these are of course team calcs, and you know, I will be basing, I guess, their ranking based on the character's best team. So sometimes you have to take that into consideration. Well, maybe these characters are a bit better as a standalone character, which we will talk a bit about as well. And we are going to be assuming slightly above average player skill. I'd say the average player, if you include like the median player for this game, I mean, they probably don't even watch guide videos on, you know, Wuthering Waves to even learn proper rotations. So we are assuming a player that, you know, is able to do proper rotations, but isn't really that comfortable or doesn't really have the time to grind perfect quick swap rotations and min-max everything. Look, they've got a job, they've got a girlfriend, maybe a kid. Okay, let me know if you guys have a girlfriend. And they've got
He sure knows his target audience.
stuff to do, so you know they can't just be spending all their time optimizing a rotation. So we got to take that into consideration when we make recommendations for people. Now,
I always feel like this whole point about player skill is always the most... It is, without a doubt, the most tricky part about all of these comparisons, about all these tier lists, because what these guys have to do, and don't worry, I've gotten word from the actual makers of the calculations themselves, they've got to actually calculate in room for error in the rotations, right? Like, where are like the common pitfalls that players are going to have executing these specific moves in this specific order, and then like actually account for that and like extend rotations, lower DPS, certain things along those lines, right? And that bleeds into the actual numbers, right? Because there are optimal ways to do things. And if you were to calculate things always at the optimal level of performance, that takes out a lot of like the actual factors of, oh, are you going to execute three frame perfect quick swaps in a row to make sure that this resource is at this exact level exactly when you need it to at this point in the rotation? Probably not, unless you're literally playing the game like MLG. You know, you're playing the game like a job. And I like that these disclaimers are so upfront over here. But I will be honest. Yeah, the entire first part, like, we haven't even gotten into the numbers yet. We're 4 minutes in and it's all disclaimers.
now, there are a few parameters for this list. One is that this is going to be based on Sequence 0, Refinement 1 signature weapons for the DPS characters.
I like that. That's a good ranking.
I decided to normalize that aspect of it because otherwise, you know, there's just way too much variations, and this is a starting point. Perhaps as time goes on, we can adjust the list, and if you guys find this list helpful or interesting in terms of the calcs and stuff, let us know, and you know, we might be motivated to make more of them. Now,
I have one suggestion for the list over here, right? So what they do is they list out the DPS of the teams. They also list out the total damage. Please put in the rotation time. right? That's the one thing that's missing over here. Because to get the DPS of a team, you need to take the total damage and then divide it by the number of seconds in the rotation. And one thing that's not clear in any of these calculations is how long these rotations actually take. It's, you know, it's like seeing a bunch of different parts of an equation, but then not like one of the variables. And because you don't have them, you can't calculate everything else.
Now, the other caveat is that Shorekeeper and Verena, when they are on these teams, they're simply using the variation catalyst, and the cost is based on how many featured 5 stars are on their team. For example, if you have Augusta with her signature weapon, that costs 2 worth 5-star featured worth of pulls roughly. And of course, there are a few more disclaimers worth going through. This is not going to be focused on, for example, the utility that characters bring to gameplay modes like Whimpering Wastes. I might mention it here and there, but overall that's not the focus of this. This is more focused on just team DPS output.
I think a lot of people don't recognize that there are many DPSs in this game that trade a decent amount of their damage for some built-in quality of life in their kit. And some of the examples, right, are, well, let's just be honest here. Gian arguably has the most consistent grouping in the game. I don't know any character that can just group for a whole 10 seconds. Similarly, Zhang Liao has 3 built-in time stops in his kit. There's really not any other character in the game that can chain together 3 literal CCs in a row like that on enemies as a main DPS, right? There are sub-DPS characters or supports that have some of those capabilities, but it's not really a situation where, you know, it's like a one-size-fits-all situation.
Then, needless to say, this is not a perfect or even, you know, a great comparison between teams. Now, as for some disclaimers, these team calcs are not intended as an end-all be-all comparison, but simply one reference for team damage. Different teams excel in different situations. Just because one team is better than another team based on these calcs does not mean that that team is always or actually better than whatever teams they ranked higher than. There are certainly mistakes in the calcs and countless ways to optimize, but we did our best to provide some sort of basis of comparison. Please take everything with a giant grain.
So you remember how I said this was going to cause drama? It seems like they also thought that as well. It seems like I win to lose, and the people making these sheets also thought that, because it's been 6 fucking minutes and we haven't covered a single goddamn fucking team yet.
Of salt and use your own best judgment. Now, with all that yapping out of the way, we are going to stop with the cream of the crop, the top dogs in terms of team DPS output, and we actually have the top team as the 100% DPS baseline for this chart. And yeah, we're going to hop on over to my goofy, colorful charts. And we can see here that the Cartethia, Chacona, as well as Rover Arrow team here ranks supreme in terms of sheet team DPS. And they are just a bit higher than, for example, Augusta's team with Yuno as well as Shorekeeper. But this is going to be the top 10% teams where, you know, these characters are between 90% and 100% of the best team's damage in the game.
I do like the notes that they have for this, though. I hope he goes over them, because there's a lot of, let's just say there are some complications to running this team. And this is where the whole average time it takes to do a rotation really comes in handy for, you know, you see the DPS over here, you see the total damage. Part of it is, well, how long is this stuff taking?
What's interesting about the Cartethia team is that it is also a bit lower in cost. However, you do have to use Arrow Rover, which I gotta be honest, I do not like using Arrow Rover.
That's the main thing. I think a lot of people are functionally pretty okay with this team doing the most damage in the game, because no one likes using this character. It genuinely feels like Arrow Rover is like the cost of using this team, and that cost is so high, I never play this team. I literally, you can look at all gameplay I ever do, I literally never use Cartethia, and I never use Arrow Rover. And the reason for that is very simple. I despise using this character so much. I've had stages where the enemy is too aggressive at the start of the battle, and it's actually just not possible to do Arrow Rover starting rotation. It's like literally, I remember we're trying to record against certain TOA floors, and this guy just gets knocked out of the air immediately. And there's just like nothing you can do, because if you dodge in the air, then you just plunge. And it's like you still have to jump back up into the air anyways. It's just so painful trying to get this guy to do anything at all. And yes, their weapon is really good, but they're a walking weapon buff, bro. That's like it. If you could use that, if you could use Arrow Rover's weapon buff on any other character, you would.
The character has issues, in my to say
Like, just look at that shit. Hey, that's like perfect. I don't know if that was like, I don't know if he was playing himself.
To be honest, I do not like using Arrow Rover. The character has issues.
Look at that. Look at that. They missed the Forte attack, just like at like a regular start of the
The
TOA
character has
stage.
issues, in my to say the least. At least I feel like they have issues. But you know, as you can see, this team is going to be the baseline, and I don't think people are going to be surprised that these are the two top teams, Cartethia as well as Chacona. Being obviously incredible characters with each other. And this is also important to note, is that we are, in this case, putting these characters here in this tier based on their best team. So for example, would Chacona be a character you would pull without Cartethia or some of her other good teams? Honestly, probably not. But, you know, with that in mind, we are taking a look at their best teams in this case.
I think one thing to note is that Chacona is the best teammate on a lot of teams. That's something to keep in mind. Chacona is, without a doubt, the best teammate on a lot of the teams that are going to be on this list.
And next we have Augusta, Yuno, and Shorekeeper. No one's surprised to see, I think, the three of them up here. Augusta recently released DPS character, one of the best in the game, and she also feels great to use. We have Yuno as well, one of my personal favorite characters, I would say. I think she's absolutely fantastic, and she's also a jack of all trades, providing a ton of utility for the team. And finally, we have Shorekeeper, who is, you're going to see her a lot on this list.
One thing to keep in mind is that Augusta actually is one of the most interruptible teams in the game. She has a very big tendency to get her attacks completely stuffed. Like she has multiple liberation casts. Some of them can just be straight up canceled if you're staggered during the starting animations. So there's a little bit of clunk in that trunk when it comes to doing this lineup. And I think that alone is kind of like one of the barriers that's there. Rather than, you know, the Rover Arrow situation for the Cartithia team, it's kind of like the Augusta situation for the Augusta teams. There can be, you can, if you played Augusta before, you probably know what I'm talking about with this one.
But at the very least, in terms of her very top team, she's also part of one of the best teams in the game with Augusta as well as Yuno. Next, we've got the 80 to 90%er teams, and there are three teams that fall into this category. First, we have Frolova, Cantarella, as well as Rocha, and this team will absolutely murder Whimpering Waste.
It is the best Whimpering Waste team in the game. And I hope he mentions that this team has found a resurgence in Tower of Adversity.
But in terms of even for just tower viability and just like, you know, DPS checks and how much damage they can output in terms of their overall DPS, this team is going to be one of the better ones, although Rocha is definitely one of the more interchangeable characters on this list.
Yeah, you can replace her with the Danjin. So I want to talk about some of the specifics when it comes to the new TOA floors and why Frolova is just inherently more valuable now than she was before. Typically in the TOA, floors 1 and 2 are the hardest. These would take you on average about a minute to clear. For these floors, on the other hand, there's more waves of enemies. You're taking around 2 minutes. If not around 2 minutes and 15 seconds sometimes to get it clear. And that means that Frolova, because of her after sound stacking mechanic, she actually has way more value in these later stages, because one thing that she does, right, is gain a shit ton of crit damage and then also gain a shit ton of additional multiplier on her nuke as the fight duration gets longer and longer. So, ironically enough, the lower investment your Frolova is, like, the more she benefits from, like, these longer bits of content because, well, she'll have more opportunities to stack all of this stuff up. So, that's kind of like what's going on over here. So, the longer the fight is, like how in Weewa, you're forced to do a full 2-minute fight. With the new TOA floors, with them having more enemies, you having an additional 30 seconds to get a 3-star clear, well, the longer it is, the better it is for her.
Do keep in mind, though, that we are talking about a 6-cost team, which definitely makes this, of course, a bigger investment. And you may have noticed that in this Augusta, Shorekeeper team, that Shorekeeper only counts as 1 cost here. And this is, in this case, we have Shorekeeper and Verena using variation, so that's why they are only at 1 cost. When typically, obviously if they had their signatures or if Shorekeeper had her signature, she'd be a 2-cost character in this case.
Yeah.
But the next couple teams actually really surprised me, one of them being my man, Gion. And
you heard that right, ladies and gentlemen. According to this list and with all of its disclaimers factored in, Gion is the 4th best team in the game. Get ready to cope and seethe, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to cope and seethe.
Of course, he is definitely getting a bit wheelchaired here by Yuno as well as Chikona.
So this is why the definition of wheelchairing is incorrect in my opinion. So the way that this team works is that Gion and Yuno are both Arrow. Right? They're both Arrow characters. And the thing is that Chikona, like I mentioned before, she's one of the best units in the game currently in terms of pull value. Because she has so much ability with her signature, once again, to reduce arrow resistance on the enemy. And then additionally, right, she's able to buff arrow damage just at a baseline with her solo concert by 24%. So the end result is that Chikona is a unit that can fully realize her 24% arrow damage bonus and her arrow resistance reduction. Let me talk a little bit about how this is so much more different than what's going on the arrow erosion team, right? When you're running like a Cartithia and a Chikona and an arrow rover, one thing is very, very, very certain. Your arrow rover is dealing literally no damage on the fucking team. All your arrow rover is doing is providing their damage amp and pretty much nothing else and some occasional healing, right? Your 10% arrow res reduction and your 24% arrow damage bonus from here functionally is doing almost nothing for arrow rover because they're not dealing any damage in the first place. While if you're running a comp with like a Yuno, right, alongside a Gion, these are 2 characters that are fully benefiting from all of those different effects at the same time. And guess what? But the thing is, there's a trade-off in this team. Because all of your arrow erosion stacks, right? Your 20 stacks are literally not doing anything. While, when you're running the Cartithia team, Cartithia is scraping erosion stacks off the top, detonating them, and then constantly having it reapplied with Chikona being off field. That's kind of like the dynamic that's working in this team, right? Because you can clearly see, trigger 1 instance of erosion damage and reduce the stacks. Chikona is constantly, right, refueling them. While when she's in the Gion or Yuno team, well, her arrow erosion is just capping out at 3 and then not really doing anything. But you're using her other buffs way better. So the whole term wheelchairing to me isn't what I would use. This is more so just a team that heavily synergizes with each other. They all are just working alongside each other to buff everybody, spread the use cases of these buffs way further. This is more so like a mono fusion team, right? As opposed to other teams in the game. It's like a mono arrow team. While this is the erosion team.
But it is great to see him as one of the older characters having a new incredible team. And personally, out of the teams I use with Yuno, this is one of my personal favorites.
This is also my favorite Yuno and Chikona team. I will run this 10 out of 10. I will run this every time over the Cartithia over the Cartithia Chacona Arrow Rover team. Because when I play this, I don't need to play Arrow Rover.
I have a strong bias towards him because one nice thing I really, really like about Gian is that no matter how rusty I am at this game, like, oh, I forgot how Frolova Cantarella's rotation works. Oh, I can just throw in Gian. I remember him is super, super simple, super easy. So yeah, that is one benefit of Gian, is that he is just such an easy character to pick up and play. And for him to be...
And again, the dodge cancels. Like, this is good. This is relatively good Gian gameplay over here too.
Currently in the one of the top 4 teams here is absolutely fantastic. Him being such an old character as well. But the issue is in terms of, like, for example, pull value, that's when, you know, like, you don't really pull him in today's day and age when you've got characters like main DPS here that is doing.
I think there's still a decent case for pull value. I'm gonna be honest. And the pull value is basically going to be, if you don't like playing Arrow Rover or Cartithia, because this team will clear all the content in the game. And this is another thing, right? This Gian, Cachona team is so much better in Whimpering Waste than this team, it's actually almost unethical. It is genuinely almost unethical how much better this team is in Weewa compared to this team, and this team still bulldozes the TOA. And that's going to be my take. You go in, you don't have any specific buffs for like an Arrow Erosion team. You take either of these into Weewa, you're going to have a way better experience with one of them compared to the other. And you already know which one's going to give you a better experience.
Doing nearly as well at a lower cost as well with, for example, Rover Arrow. So just keep all that stuff in mind when I mention this stuff. And
there's also a heavy drawback for the main DPS team. The AoE on it is fucking dog shit. It has, like, literally, you will be able to actually see how bad this team performs in some content right now. For example, like I just mentioned before, 2 of these guys spawn. And Yuno's AoE can be, like, so picky and so bad that even with these guys spawning next to each other, you'll only damage one of them. I could just show you an example of it firsthand, actually. And this is where I would say a lot of people do seem to be overestimating significantly. I know we're using it in the Gian team, but you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. Right? This is exactly what I'm talking about here. She cannot hit both of them. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of annoying to deal with. Even in the tower. Imagine that in Whimpering Wastes. And that is the point that I'm trying to make over here. Yes, she has main DPS potential, but her AoE coverage can be so fucking bad that it's like jumping through hoops. It's like having Arrow Rover as your support. There are some barriers that end up happening across the gameplay that, again, a lot of people, they're not going to factor in to the actual into like the act. They'll just look at the numbers and not factor in that side of the equation.
you can see, obviously, like, this does not mean this is a blessing to go pull Gian. No, it's not. But if you do have him, you have some hope for him. Now, let's move on to the next tier, which is the 70 to 80% gang, Carlotta, Judge, and Shorekeeper in this tier. And still, this team still feels absolutely fantastic to use. They tend to be able to handle whatever you need them to, whatever you need them to handle for the most part, except for maybe some of the most difficult things in the center tower. You might.
I think it's perfectly fine in the center tower. I'm gonna disagree with this take over here. I think that this team absolutely blows out the back of everything in the game still. I even took this team into Whimpering Waste and just easy got like a 2.5k score, right? Where AoE is supposed to be Carlotta's worst content. Yeah, I think he's understating this team a little bit. It still completely bulldozes all the content in the game. That isn't Glacio immune.
struggle a bit, but they can definitely handle the side tower stuff for sure. And up next, we actually, I'm a bit surprised to see her, I guess, down technically this low, but we've got Zani.
Oh, another note from Sweat Drops, who is who's somebody that collaborated on this list. One thing he told me was that the Carlotta and Jeja team that's being listed over here has an extraordinarily long rotation. And the reason why Carlotta is being specifically singled out for having a longer rotation is the fact that Carlotta kind of is one of the most automatic teams in the game. There's almost no way to mess up her rotation if you know what buttons to press, because she's got like iframes out the wazoo, incredible gap closing, built-in dodges in her kit, built-in invulnerability on her plunge attacks and stuff like that. So like the end result is that if you practice just a teeny bit with Carlotta, you can get extremely close to like frame perfect sheet level rotations, right? And from what we're seeing on here in these DPS lineups, and that's why I said rotation time would be helpful, you're not seeing like the longer amount of time it's taking to do the Carlotta rotation in this sheet, when it's actually potentially more realistic for it to be shorter because of how easy this team is to play. So that's my disclaimer for that one. Now let's move on to the the Zani situation over here.
Yuno and Phoebe here. And Zani and Phoebe, you know, when they were released, I would say they felt like the next kind of level of DPS. Although really on paper, it looks like Carlotta here was actually kept up. So not as much power creep as expected.
This is a similar sort of argument for the Carlotta team, right? You are fully capable of using Zani Phoebe teams to a much higher degree, but then the amount of swap cancels, frame perfect shit you need to do to actually make that occur is no one's actually been able to replicate it from the human perspective. It's just impossible to get these numbers that a lot of individuals have been sheeting out as 15, 25% power creep. And the end result is that a lot of players actually got baited into pulling Zani and Phoebe, thinking that it was this team that literally was doing 25% more damage than everybody else. And then those same exact players literally regret the purchase. They can't clear with her in like floor 4 of the hazard zone. They're getting absolutely ass wiped by the Dragon of Dirge and the Lampy Lumen Myriad because the buffs don't work that well for Zani. And so people are just like not able to reach even close to that full potential of what was heavily advertised to them, right? As 15, 25% power creep. And it's led to a lot of people with a Zani and Phoebe that are currently collecting dust. That's the reality of the situation. And unfortunately, right, it is what it is, but it's just in the hands of most players, this team is really not doing that well. And the number of people that you see struggling on this floor with this team over here is a little bit... I've seen so many people not able to clear with this team. A lot of people.
But in this case, we are assuming Yuno with Zani team. However, you of course don't need Yuno. And in fact, if you just use Spectre Rover or something, you are at just about roughly the same amount of performance. So that is good to see. Zani still pretty powerful main DPS character. And we've actually here, we're seeing one of our first low cost teams with Augusta, Mortefi, and Shorekeeper only costing 3. In this case, Augusta, SCR1, Shorekeeper costing 1 as well. So definitely one of the highest performing low-cost teams on this list.
And think about it this way. Mortefi, Augusta, Shorekeeper is one of those teams where you can't really fuck up the gameplay that much. The only thing that can occur during a Mortefi, Shorekeeper, Augusta rotation that messes you up is you getting interrupted during an attack. That is the skill barrier in that team. Did you attack in the middle of an enemy's attack and get your Augusta's rotation stuffed? And if that doesn't occur, congratulations, you've passed the skill check.
We've got the Fusion crew with Brant, Lupa, and Chongli.
And this is where I'm going to be like, okay, I'm not really sure what's going on over here.
And Chongli, again, is one of those characters who, kind of like Jian, who's like, super ancient, We've got Grandpa and Grandma here trying to make their way into the meta. But fortunately, that is one nice thing about Wuthering Waves and the way they release characters, is that they do release characters that elevate older characters. Like, for example, Lupa was a great pull if you had Chong-Li's.
So this is why I said having the time is really important, because I'm not sure, because this is basically the main thing, right? If you look at the damage of this team, it's literally the fourth, according to the calcs, right? It's the fourth best damage out of everything on the roster, hypothetically, right? It's the fourth best damage team. But it's way below all of the other teams with a similar number, which would lead you to believe they're taking a really fucking long time to rotate with this team. That rotation is 28.2 seconds. I mean, fuck it. We can just, like, test it out firsthand to see how long it would take over here. 28.42 seconds. Like, this is the thing. I find this team to be one of the easiest ones to pilot if you're going at it just from, like, an outro skill point of view. Like, this is, like, and believe me, I will tell you what I'm doing. It's very simple. Land that ability. Then I'm literally just spamming the left mouse button over here, right? I'm pressing left mouse button again, and then I use this attack. Boom. And then I'm going to outro skill into, I guess, thin air. That was really awkward. And then... Okay, that's actually going to mess up my rotation. I'm spamming basic. It's really easy. The only problem with that was Brant whiffed his intro. That was it. But just look at this. I'm spamming basic. I use my skill when it's up. And I'm going to intro skill in, liberation, and then I'm going to hold down my left mouse button. And then I'm going to press this. Then I'm going to press Q. Then I'm going to intro skill in, right? And then I'm going to spam the attack button. Skill, hit the attack button, skill, hit the attack button, right? And then I'm going to use this, liberation, then heavy attack, and then echo, and that's it, right? That is the team's rotation when I'm playing it, right? Super easy. And that's the thing, right? I don't know if those are the attacks that they're using. I don't know if that's the rotation that they're using, right? We don't actually know if that's the one that's being shared across all the different teams. That's the one that I use. And believe me when I say this, that one does a shit ton of damage. That one does a shit ton of damage. And I've compared, like, clear times and stuff like that, running all of these teams, like, on my lonesome, right? It just kind of ends up at, like, similar, if not faster, clear times than other teams. That could be due to, like, echo investment and stuff like that, right? But, yeah, that's why I would love to see how long these rotations are taking and what rotations they're actually doing as well.
Characters who kind of like Jian, who's like, super ancient. We've got Grandpa and Grandma here trying to make their way into the meta. But fortunately, that is one nice thing about Wuthering Waves and the way they release characters, is that they do release characters that elevate older characters. Like, for example, Lupa was a great pull if you had Chong-Li's, so is Brant as well. And personally though, I have a feeling that if they release a new fusion DPS character, the first character that's going to go is Chong-Li. But yeah, we'll just it's good to still see her being, viable in the 70 to 80% gang.
Yeah, I don't know. That's, again, the rotation time to me is really something that's important, and the rotation that they're doing, because I kind of want to, like, try it. Like, I kind of want to, like, try it against, like, this thing. Did someone say it was 28 seconds? They said it was 28 seconds. $28.2. I just want to even, like, see if that's, like, even humanely possible. I mean, it's getting close to that, right? But I mean, I was able to get it in like 30. I was able to get it in like 30. But are they doing the same exact attacks that I am? I think that's the question. Are they doing the same attacks that I am currently? Because yeah, that's what it's looking like in the middle tower into absolutely no resistance. Right, like no resistance, no bonuses. That's what it's looking like in there. So yeah, I again, I would just like to see what the rotations actually are to be getting those timings, because I would say I played it in the most like casual but like invested casual way possible.
And next we've got a Gion team without, a bit lower cost with Shorekeeper instead of, for example, a Chacona up here. And this team doesn't really add anyone to this tier, but you can see how, for example, with Gion, Shorekeeper, now this team is not nearly as good as, for example, with Chacona instead. Now, we've had a big
So yeah, Gion's on the list twice.
reveal of a lot of characters in the 60 to 70% of the top meta DPS character gang. And interestingly though, only 2 characters were added to this based on their best teams. So this is the first time that these characters were featured anywhere, in any of these teams. Those 2 characters being Camellia and Jinchi. But we can see as we start to make less optimal combinations of characters, like for example, Encore here instead of Chong-Li, you can see it drops a few percentage points. But yeah, I mean, that's another point that I want to make with Chong-Li, is that you've got free-to-play options like Encore, Chuxia as well.
So one thing, again, that I've been told by some of the people in charge of some of the calculations, or that aided out with the calculations, is that a lot of these characters have much higher DPS openers, much higher DPS in terms of like, that doesn't actually require that much additional inputs to do, but they've taken a much more casual approach with certain units like a Jinsi and with certain units like the Camellia. And so they actually have a tendency to have way higher overall DPS. It's just they're kind of being shown at a very surface level overview right now. And another thing that I kind of need to mention just right off of the bat, I've already covered it in other videos before, is the fact that 1.0 units are without a doubt, in one degree, they're without a doubt completely power corrupt. And that one is, ladies and gentlemen, Sonata sets. Because it's pretty clear by now, hopefully it is clear, that there's a big difference between a set like Celestial Light, which gives you just 40% spectral damage. There's a big difference between this and something like this, where you gain 30% attack and 20% critical damage on top of the 2-piece bonus. The reality kind of has become 1.x units, their Sonata sets are so much fucking worse than every new unit. It's almost insane how bad they are. Like, you just look at Frolova's over here. She's just out here slanging 20% crit rate and 35% echo skill damage bonus, right? It's just, you look at every new set in comparison. Hey, let's look at Carlotta, right? The oldest new set. She just gets like 70+% skill damage. She just gains like 70+% skill and glacial damage combined. And it's like, yes, when every other character is using a set that has 40%, there's going to be a difference in the overall numbers. And so I would dare say, and this is something that I've asked for specifically, it would be really interesting to see what the DPS of these 2.x units, these Augustas, these Frelovas, these Carlottas, if they were on 1.x sets instead. What does Cartithia look like on Sierra Gale? What does Augusta look like on Void Thunder? What does Frolova look like on Havoc Eclipse? Carlotta on the Glacial set nobody fucking uses, right? Zani on Celestial Light. And the thing is, probably not nearly as good as the numbers that you're seeing right now. I think people have calculated it on average. It's about a 7 to 9k DPS decrease. Just so you know, it's a 7 to 9k DPS decrease using a 1.x set on the 2.x units. So yeah, you got the whole Uno team over here, probably drops down to 50-something K. Augusta's team probably drops down to like high 60s. For Lova's team, probably jumps all the way down to 50-something, right? That's what y'all gotta keep in mind when you're looking at the placement of some of these older units. Part of it, potentially, could be from outdated kit design, but another part of it, right, is likely due to the fact that they're using some dog shit Sonata sets compared to all the new units.
That make Chong-Li kind of a low pull value for your account. Unless you got her swimsuit, then she's a great pull value. Can you buy her swimsuit without buying her? I actually have no idea, but if that's something you want, then yeah, you could go for it. But anyway, we can see here that as we get into typically lower cost teams, although a couple of them are a bit higher cost, like for example, Camellia's cost here, we've got a 5 cost team, pretty low performing, all things considered. And I gotta be honest, I personally don't like using Camellia. Every time I use her, I don't know, just something about it feels off. Regardless, yeah, we can.
Y'all know why he doesn't like using Camellia? Because motherfucker's still using Blossom. For some reason, I don't know why. Why is everyone still using Blossom mode in single target? Why does everybody use Blossom mode in single target? Guys, she does more damage in the single target white-haired form. Her dodge counters, guys, please, a PSA, please just use her regular non-Blossom. This is Blossom form. Look at the dodge counter damage. 220% in the AoE form. In the single target form, it's 300%. So if you're against a single target boss like this, and you're constantly dodging and using dodge counters, guys, use the white-haired form, please. It literally does more damage. You can even see on the spin, too. 22 times 19, 24.7 times 20. Please, guys, I'm begging you, please, just use the white-haired form. You'll be like, wow, this actually changes everything.
Using Camellia every time I use her, I don't know, just something about it feels off. Regardless, yeah, we can start to see
something about it feels off. I figured out what feels off. We figured out what feels off.
That older characters, Camellia, I guess Camellia's kind of old at this point, as well as Jinshi, they're starting to fall down here in this list area. But we have not made it to the rock bottom yet. Let's go ahead and reveal the final characters on this list. And bam, we've got the less than 60% gang, and there are only 2 characters that unfortunately fall into this category. Those characters being Shang Li Yao as well as Yin Lin.
So like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is literally the worst team in the game. I have said this so many times, that this Zhang Liao Yinlin team is literally the worst one in the game.
Now, perhaps if you put Yinlin on a team where she can get carried a bit more, this might be, a bit more, maybe she might be able to crawl up a tier or something. And
you can see over here, it literally deals, and I've said this so many times, it literally deals less damage than Gian Mortefi. It literally deals less damage than Gian fucking Mortefi, bro. Oh, and guess what, guys? Oh, and this is the other one that I love. Remember when I said Gian Mortefi is stronger than Cartithia Sanhua? And everyone started schizoing out and said that I was wrong? That Gian Mortefi is stronger than Cartithia Sanhua. Just eat my ass, you idiots. I have told you so many times. I have told you so many times.
This is also
2 costs versus 3 costs. If you're out here and you're gonna compare Shorekeeper as a cost, if you're genuinely calling Shorekeeper even a significant cost at this point, let's just be real, guys. You're missing the point entirely.
also something that, you know, we discussed was, for example, you can't just slap on Originite Type 4 onto Shangli Yao and then throw him on a team with like Cartethia, Chikona, or Augusta, you know, and call it a day. So we
You can, however, play Zhang Liao in dual DPS and he will fuck up content.
decided to avoid, you know, like shenanigans like that. So really we're sticking with kind of their actual teams, right? Needless to say, you know, Shangli Yao is also a character that greatly benefits from higher skill expression as well. And same with Yin Lin. So I do think there is that to keep in mind, that this does not factor in, for example, super sweaty quick swapping, where, you know, players can definitely get more value out of these characters, as well as many of the other characters above, but definitely these two for sure can appreciate it. So yeah, a bit sad to see them down this low, you know.
It's because Yinlin's a piece of dog shit. That's really what it is. It's because Yinlin is a fucking terrible character. There is just really no circumstance where any unit in the game should be dealing this little damage. Like, literally her liberation just deals, like, almost, like, hardly it's like 800% damage on her liberation, right? This thing's over here. It's got a 125 resonance cost. Okay, it's a little bit low, right? Whatever. Look at Chikona's, bro. It's the same cost, and it just deals more damage. It just deals more damage, and like has even like an additional like 120% in the DOT. You just look at her kit, right, and you're like, okay. You could say the other sub DPSs power crept Yinlin, or you could just say the truth of the matter. Yinlin released underpowered as fuck. Her gameplay was probably completely unsatisfying because the character was literally dealing no damage at all. And so every sub DPS that released afterwards just deals a more regular level of damage and just feels way better to play. But the end result is that Yinlin, as the first limited sub DPS, has just fallen behind the curve because everyone else just deals so much more damage than her. It's actually ridiculous. Every other DPS just deals, or every other sub DPS just deals so much more than her.
Unfortunately, that's just the way team calcs go. They don't really care about anything besides how well do they sheet and how well do they theory craft in this case. So yeah, this is the list for example, the best S0R1 teams for each individual character and how they rank in terms of just how they compare to the best team in the game. And I've got one more bonus list for you guys, and that is which characters have the best 2 cost only teams. And the reason why I actually think this tier list is a bit helpful is because of how we need 3 to 4 fully built teams for Tower of
Okay, so these are like the best budget teams. Okay, let's take a look at these.
Now, so yeah, you may want to consider, you know, which characters can kind of carry their own weight really, really well.
Okay.
And actually, if we set the new baseline really quick over to this right here, now we can actually see a new ranking system where the best 2 cost only team at the moment, based on, you know, the calcs that we have so far.
Okay, these teams make a decent amount of sense to me.
is Frolova, Rover Havoc, and Don Jin. So Frolova bringing her gang of, you know, free-to-play friendly Havoc characters. And we can see here that this team actually does reasonably well. And for a 2-cost team in comparison to, for example, on these other top tiers, we've got the 90 to 100% gang. We've got, unsurprisingly, Frolova, Augusta, Yuno being the top dogs in terms of this.
I would say these are relatively fair looking analyses. You can tell that there's like somebody a little bit broken being used for teams 3 and 4, because once again, Arrow Rover's weapon passive of like 26% amp is like ridiculous, right?
And we've got Cartethia as well, who I do think is worth mentioning. A lot of people say, like, I do think personally I could round.
Okay, so this is where I find the calculations to be a little bit interesting, right? I think we could take a look at it ourselves. So one thing that we took a look at over here, right, was Gian compared to Gian Mortefi Shorekeeper, right, at a nice little 48. And then you see Gian Mortefi Verena at 41. I'm not gonna lie, I personally am a little bit curious as to how replacing Verena with Shorekeeper is like a 7k damage difference. I'm gonna be honest, like a 7k DPS difference from putting in Shorekeeper over Verena is a little bit ambitious to me. I personally wouldn't view it as like, I mean, maybe this is like literally exactly the case, right? But that's kind of like where we are right now, right? That's a little bit wild in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of a lot.
Round up and move her up here. You know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna take the liberties of rounding up.
And this is the thing, right? You'll never know where that increase is coming from, because one thing about cheating that of course has been talked about a lot when it comes to cheating is that you have a consistent level of stats, right? That you're putting into the calculation, a consistent level of investment that you're putting in for all of these units, and then having the different stat buffs, all of that on top of it, right? And so the end result is that unless I know what is being put into this formula, you can't be entirely sure about, you know, the end result of the calculations, because you don't see what's going inside. You don't know what the base stats are, right? What if these are all teams with like 50% crit rate and 250% critical damage? And so when you put in Shorekeeper, right? When you put in Shorekeeper, she actually has way more value. Alternatively, right? If you were to put in base stats of 90% crit rate, then Shorekeeper's value suddenly falls off of a cliff, right? But you don't know what the stats of the character are in advance, and that's why I'm saying, well, I don't know the whole story unless I know what the stats actually are on what's being input into these calculations.
To move her up. Actually, no. This list is purely based on calc, so we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But we can definitely see a recency bias here in terms of having a single character be able to carry with Frolova, Augusta, Yuno, and Cartethia. Although we do suffer quite a bit once we get into the next gang, which is the pretty much 80 to 90% gang. And actually, I'm a bit surprised here. We've got Phoebe.
I would dare say, I do find it interesting that based off the sheeting over here, they're saying Arrow Rover Sanhua Cartithia is better than Camellia Sanhua Verena. Maybe that's right, but I would say in practice, I feel like most people are getting better results with Camellia Sanhua Verena than Cartithia Sanhua Arrow Rover. That's my take, just from personal experience running the teams. One's a lot better than the other. And that's, you know, just another part of the calcs.
And Zani neck and neck here, with Phoebe outperforming Zani by a little bit in terms of, you know, a theoretical DPS, as well as Zani just, you know, being right next to Phoebe, which is kind of funny to me to see. But yeah. And then we've got the next tier for the low cost gang, and we've got Gian and Carlotta, who, you know, they're in the 70 to 80% range of the best 2-cost only team, which is reasonable, all things considered, although, you know, of course not fantastic. And then we're hitting to the much lower tiers with Brant If you use Brant as your main DPS character, and of course Brant is more not really a main DPS character, so it's actually pretty interesting to see him rank reasonably. Well, yeah, at this point, these are kind of the bottom 3 characters in terms of 2 cost-only teams. Brant, Jinshi, and Xiangli Yao. And unfortunately, we don't have, calcs for all these characters in terms of...
Let's just be honest. If you're using any of the teams closer to the bottom, you are basically scraping the bottom of the barrel.
2 cost-only teams, so I apologize for that. Perhaps in the future, as we get around to making more and more team calcs, we might be able to add them. But needless to say, obviously, Shorekeeper is not like a low-tier characters. These characters just don't have, exclusive 2 cost-only team calcs for them. So yeah, there you go. These are the 2 tier lists based on team calculations. And keep in mind, again, these are just purely theoretical, theory-crafted rotations and teams. They are, of course, by no means 100% accurate in accounting for the average player's skill. And perhaps, maybe you can find some value out of it, whether you're trying to build a low-cost team and deciding, hey, who should I pull for? Or if you're trying to you're trying to get some of the best teams in the game to clear some of the hardest stuff in the game, well, hey, we've got this list on the side for those characters that really, really excel in the situations if you are looking to invest fully into a character's team.
I mean, overall, I would say I don't think this is a bad list at all, but I do think that there are just a couple of standouts in terms of like the calculations, not necessarily like seeing the rotations. I'm personally of the boat that I feel like the Mono Fusion team is not necessarily getting. Like, the Mono Fusion team, to me, like, even, like, with the coverage in the video, and, of course, the fact that it's, like, closer to the bottom of this list over here, and then, like, in the video, like, the only explanation we get is that, like, Chang Li's, like, old. That, to me, is, like, I really do feel like there was probably a lot more coverage that could have been done over here in regards to this lineup. And, again, I would like to see the rotation time, all of that. Just to, actually get, like, the full picture of this one, right? Because one thing you could easily say about the Mono Fusion team is that it is one of the higher investment ones in the game. And I'm somebody that in all of my gameplay, playing all these different lineups, trying them out in all these different TOA floors, it's a team that I've seen literally perform the best compared to a lot of other ones on my roster. And so, yeah, it might just be a personal thing. It might just be because I have incredibly good echoes and stuff like that. But also another part of it is like, wait, I'm not, like, the hell is like going on? The hell is like going on in the back end of this thing? So, yeah, that's basically just it for me. I would just say as a whole, great overall video to, I think, educate a part of the populace. But I do think that there's a lot of disclaimers that need to be done. And, we'll take the opportunity to do a bit of like a deep dive into, well, what does it look like when you actually take that theory and put it into practice? So that might be one of the future videos that we have coming up when it comes to this tier list. Maybe just taking a look at the top teams and then seeing how they actually perform. So yeah, that'll be that for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, make sure you give a thanks to I Win to Lose. All of that. Give him a like and he uploads too much like content on other games that I'm not going to watch, so that's why I don't sub to him. But if you do play those games, make sure you do. But yeah, let me know what you all thought. Peace. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I would be interested in what the average investments are looking like on those characters as a whole. Look at that comment. Look at which comment. Oh. This one? Guys, this is the kind of like unfortunate thing. I think this video could have been uplifted severely if they showed off like sample rotations, actual gameplay, like showed you like, a little bit of practice beyond just the theory. That's what I do. But I guess the thing is, unfortunately, it seems like some people like this just really like being told the numbers and then not really anything else in regards to that. The other thing is, well, you kind of need somebody to be able to interpret a little bit further from here to, I would think, fully extract the value. So I do genuinely think that this, like, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like he could have talked a lot more. Definitely, he could have talked a lot more about like some of the specific rotations and stuff like that, and then shown more of the gameplay. I think that could have been like the way that I would turn this from like a A to like an A+ video. It is what it is. But then again, some people might just want the information a lot more short and sweet. Everything you've been saying was accurate, but the monofusion take, blah, blah. Oh, these sheets-based ranking is not the actual story. The list completely looks like misinformation. IMO, these sheet numbers never convert to actual gameplay results. There's actually a lot of wrong positions. Well, that's the thing, right? He was upfront about that fact. He was upfront about that fact. Unc, look at the YouTube. I literally just read it out loud. Yeah, appreciate that, brother man, Balo. But yeah, when it comes to sheets, I'm always a little bit speculative about them. That's why I'm doing things, right? Like asking for what the rotation looks like. What does the timing look like on these, right? What are the stats of the characters going into it, right? Because like I'm just gonna be real over here. With all, if Lupa really is S0R1, has all of that shit, and like, I mean, is it really dealing that little damage? Like, I don't think so. I think it's literally like dealing way more damage than that. I'm just gonna be entirely real with you. Like, how fast am I clearing this? Like, how fast am I clearing this right now? Because, like, this is the thing, right? I could, like, do, like, some stuff where, like, I shorten my rotation, like, oh, shit. Like, I could shorten my rotation on Chang Li to get, like, faster times and stuff like that. But then the air attacks will deal less damage than the ground true sights. So there's, like, stuff like that that you can do, for sure. But, like, this is what I mean. That's why I wish I could see the rotation that they're doing. Because there are all of, like, those slight manipulations you can do. Yeah, and that one's basically the whole 28 right there, right? Like, I'm pretty sure they're using an air attack to get 28. Yeah, that's probably what they're doing, because when I do it that way, I can pretty consistently get 28. And so, yeah. Of course, I'm, like, missing crits and stuff like that, but, like, I'm pretty sure they're just putting in more air attacks on Chang Li. Which you can definitely do. And, yeah. You'll deal less damage. For sure. Bro, your Brant deals so much damage. What, does my Brant look like an S2 Brant?
Make it fast.
Because that's what every motherfucker keeps asking. That's what every motherfucker keeps asking if it's S2. I think you're... Well, this is the thing, right? We could use a Cartithia team to show an example of it, but this boss has a literal arrow erosion debuff. The boss has a literal, like, arrow erosion debuff. And this is the thing, right? If you go by perfect sheet crazy calc, Zani, Phoebe, Spectra Rover is, like, close to, like, the top and everything. Yeah, I'm just gonna be real, guys. It's, not really... Again, I don't know. I can't make any conclusions without seeing the rotation. You can just solo with Carti floors 1 and 2. Okay, mother. I can do literally the same fucking thing with Brant. I can literally solo with Brant as well. If we're gonna go in and say,
Oh, the arrow erosion team is better because one of my characters can solo it.
okay, like, what, okay, what about now?
Victory's mine. Same actor, different role. A little mishap. Listen carefully. Keep clear. In the limelight. Same actor, different role. Perfect finale. Climax of the show. Ow, careful.
Bro, what the hell was even that?
Listen carefully.
I feel like half this shit, like, feels buggy.
Same actor, different role. Let the flames
Like, what even was that? Bro, can this guy just be... Oh, I'm getting my ass beat, bro. But yeah, I mean, this one would... This is definitely on just a random, like, first try. Not even, like, remembering this guy's parryable moves. Yeah, this is kind of nuts, bro.
in the limelight.
Yeah,
More passion. Same actor, different role.
yeah, pretty sure if I don't grief that, yeah, this clears.
Keep the tears coming.
Yeah, so that would just work too. Yeah, I basically just first tried it, then spent like a good like 15 seconds on the floor. And this is the thing, guys. You're talking about soloing with Cartithia when it's literally... she has a 30% defense reduction on the enemy because she applies erosion. Because she applies erosion to the enemies, and then they have 30% less defense. And then also there's an error resistance reduction. So like this is, and again, your liberation is dealing damage based off your HP, and Cartithia is an HP scaler. So yes, if your I hope your Cartithia is doing better than the Brant clear, because literally every single part of this TOA is designed for Cartithia. Literally every single part of the TOA. And once again, we just show Brant can do the same fucking thing. Again, Brant can do the same fucking thing, boys.
Plan with convention.
To which
Oh,
stage
I didn't
will
even
life
realize
guide
I
us?
was running some fucked up shit. I didn't even real. That's why my Brant was doing more damage and I was missing every
Whatever it
crit.
is, I'll play
Oh,
my
and I
role
had
for
a
the
fusion. I didn't even realize. I didn't even realize we were missing half of our fucking crits. That's why he was doing so much. Bro was doing like half of an S2 worth of damage. Okay, let me go see what the clear looks like now. He was doing like half of an S2 worth of damage. Yeah, 60% crit was kind of low.
Same actor, different in the limelight. Listen carefully. More passion. Victory mine.
Yeah, probably like, oh my god, bro. It would probably be more helpful to have consistent critical rate, to be honest. I think I'm already starting to see the difference. I think I'm already starting to see the difference.
Let the flames rise. Same actor, different role.
Never ask a Cartithia main how many dupes they have.
Listen carefully.
They get really mad when you ask. When you ask how many dupes they have, they get really mad.
Listen carefully. Same actor, different role. Listen carefully.
Bro, where did all my energy go? Why am I not doing air attacks?
Let the flames rise. More passion.
Wait, did we just miss a crit at 90%? No way we just missed that crit at 90%. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna be real. Yeah, my crit rate is literally, what is it?
To which stage will life?
Okay,
guide us
it's 85.9. That should be enough to pretty consistently crit,
Well,
brother.
Whatever it is.
That should be enough to pretty consistently crit, not drop a fucking 50k anchor. Yeah, we're basically landing the same number of crits that we did on the 60% build in that run. Yeah. Yeah, that was a little bit unfortunate. Yeah, that's some awful RNG right there. All right, we'll give it one more try. I will say, Fallacy is kind of a hard fight to do this on, because bro actually does just stuff this guy out of the fucking air.
Let the flames rise. Same actor, different role. Listen carefully. More passion. In the limelight. Listen carefully. Same actor, different role.
Gotta make sure to do the echo skill as well. That's actually something that deals a decent amount of damage.
Perfect finale. Climax of the show. Keep the tears. Same actor, different role.
Basically, the goal is to go from like one anchor into the other. And honestly, now that we've been doing it pretty decently. Yeah, that bro just hacked right there. Yeah, that's also the other. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why Fallacy is not really a great boss for this guy. He could just do that. Yeah, that's reminded me of Fleur de Lis. That was actually that was a hacker move right there. Y'all saw that one, right? Bro was just hacking right there. Bro was hacking right there. So yeah, I probably could have timed it to get the parry. I can't really be fucked enough. But believe me when I say this, there are some characters that are designed way better for soloing than others. Brant is one of them. Danjon's one of them. Chisha's one of them. Cartithia's one of them. But pretty much everybody else on the roster, if you take them solo, they're fucking dog shit. Yeah, I remember trying to see... I remember all these people trying to do, like, a Carlotta solo. Yeah, that's not happening, buddy. Yeah, a Carlotta solo is not happening, amigo. Yeah, you're a little bit fucking cooked over there if you're trying out that one. She has so much downtime in her damage that it's just not feasible at all. Alrighty. Alrighty. I think, I mean, I'm thinking, yeah, I feel like we got everything we need going for today. I guess we'll save some more content for the later days. We can probably do a bit of a deep dive, a bit of a rundown into some of the rankings that we're going to be seeing on that tier list and just sharing some of our own thoughts on it as well based off those numbers. But in the meantime, I mean, yeah, I covered everything that I wanted today. It's also my weekend as well. Let me go see who else is online, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go see who else is online. Alrighty. I think we'll go with a Phi AO. Yeah, I think we'll go with a Phi AO raid. Alright. I think we'll go with the Phi AO raid for now. Alright. I will catch you all later. Peace out.